Oh, yeah. What's happening, everybody? It's Saturday night, Politi-tics night on Untethered Live. I'm your host, Jake Johnson. What's going on out there in the world? I am here in this place once again. 5 nights in a row. Anyway, I got a little grass cutting today. I'm happy. Got a nice hot cup of coffee. I'm happy. I got some good people in the chat. I'm happy. It's time for some Politi-tics. John, you're first in chat again. You get the gold star. How you doing, buddy? He says, hello, family. And Amanda says, hi, Untethered Live family. Good to see you all. Happy Saturday. Hi, Jake. How are you tonight? Manicured. Well manicured. My grass is cut. Like it. That's all I did today, but I did it. Push mower. And Amanda says, John, here's your gold star and hi. Bill Bennett's here. He says, greatest show on YouTube. Thank you, Bill. I think so, too. Fantastic. I appreciate your confidence, buddy. It is a good one. I'll give you that. Amanda says, thanks, Bill. That's nice. And John says, hi, Bill. It's me says, I'm first. Nope, you're third. Fourth. Third. You're third. How you doing? It's me. Good to see you. Nice to see you up on the show tonight. Amanda says, hi, it's me. And it's me says, I'm last. Hi, Amanda. You're not last. You're right in the middle. Right, you're in the Goldilocks zone. John says, have you both recovered from last night? Oh, no. I'm still a nap down. I need a nap. I've been busy the whole time. I hadn't had a chance to slow down for a second. John's Linda Davis is here. She says, hi, everybody. Hey, Linda. How are you? How are things and stuff and junk? Good to see you. Bill Bennett says, I wish I could play the harmonica or any instrument besides the skin flute or the meat drum. LOL. I hear you. I'm proficient in all three. Harmonica is just a bunch of sucking and blowing with a pointed tongue. That's all there is to it. You should buy you a harmonica and start blowing it. And pretty soon you'll find a note that you like. Just keep doing that. And then pretty soon you'll find another one and then play both of those notes together. And Bob's your uncle. You're playing harmonica, baby. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube teach you how to do it. Literally all you got to do is move your tongue around. That's all there is to it. And have wind. If you don't have wind, you can't blow the harmonica. But if you have wind, if you can blow and suck, that's it. That's all there is to it. That's it. And Amanda says, hi, it's me. Or it's me, you get a gold medal. Nice. It's not a star, but it's in there. You get a medal. That's what she said. And Amanda says, hi, Linda, hun. And Amanda says, LOL from last night, John? Nope. No recovering here. John says, yes, Amanda. And Amanda says, LOL, right, John? I'm still sleepy. I couldn't sleep last night. Neither could I because she was kicking me all night. So I got up and slept in my chair. This chair, the one I'm sitting in now. In this position most of the night. Yes. John says, hi, it's me and Linda. And it's me says, I got 3 cars to look at tomorrow. Excellent. Maybe one of them may be a lucky charm. And Linda says, hi, John. It's me says, hey, John. Oh, we had a good show last night. Got kind of carried away with the arguments and exhausted me before I could get to the bottom of the chat, which don't happen often. But I do have to sleep at some point, so I had to give up. It was already 1 something. I think it's 1:30. It was in the 1 o'clock area, and I was tired. I started at 8:30. So we're not going to do that tonight. We might get into an argument or two, but we're going to cut it off pretty soon. 10 o'clock. 10-ish. Might go to 11. We'll see. Amanda says, 3rd place. That's what that medal is. And Patty Donahue says, hi, everybody. Hey, Patty. How are you, sweetheart? John says, I was still away from last night. You're still awake from last night? I hear you, buddy. Fab Daddy says, I missed last night. Well, you should have been here. It was a good one. You missed a good one. Last night and the night before were all good. Amanda says, hi, Fab. And yes, you did. It was great. It was. And Linda Davis says, me too, Fab. I wasn't here either. Amanda says, hi, Patty. Yeah, it was pretty good. We had some yahoos jump in. It started out as a great conversation. We were talking about thought processes. Me and Bigfoot, Dennis Bigfoot, and several other people were discussing just how you put thoughts together. And we come across the idea of zealous thinking and people that are really into certain things and how you go down certain rabbit holes and get stuck, kind of like flat earthers do. And we brought that up and we started talking about it. And I said, they have good argument, and there's a reason. They're not stupid. There is a reason that they're thinking that. And it's the thought process. And every time you come up against something you don't know or isn't settled, you have to go through that process again. The next generation does it again, and the generation after that. That's why it won't go away. So that's what we were talking about. Some yahoos came in here thinking we were flat earthers and started arguing with us as if we were flat earthers. And it got interesting, and I lost my cool a little bit. Gave them a little what for, a little pow zoom to the moon. They don't like arguing with me. Anyway, it was a good show. We enjoyed it. I don't even remember who it was that we were arguing with, but it doesn't matter. It's good content, and it's on the books. We got it. Patty says, Miss Amanda, Jake, peace, America. Nice to see you, Patty. Fab says, I'm glad it was a good show. It was. We enjoyed it. The world is triangular, says John. Right on. It wouldn't matter to me if it was. That's the thing that they didn't seem to understand. I don't care. It is interesting to think about, and if you're a person with a critical thinking mind, it's interesting to go down those rabbit holes and see why people think the things that they think. And if you're going to be a good thinker, you got to have both sides of the argument, right? You can't argue with somebody unless you understand their perspective. Otherwise, you're just in an echo chamber. You're not actually putting forth an argument. That's the mistake, the fatal mistake most people make, is they don't understand the opposition of what they're arguing. They believe a thing, and they argue it zealously, but they don't understand the holes that are in the thing they believe in. So if you're going to be an arguer, if you're going to take on somebody with a debate, you should spend some time studying the other side of the argument. And if you can't argue it, you shouldn't argue the other side. That's just the way it is. If you can't come out pro or con, you shouldn't be arguing. That's my opinion. That's mind manners. Don't take on somebody when you don't understand the context of what you're talking about. That's a bad thing to do. Also, it helps to have good punctuation and, fairly decent grammar. Otherwise, you just come off looking like a fool. Amanda says, I like it when others get Jake going, and then he gets his arguing out with someone else. It's Me says, what is your estimate of how old the earth is? Well, it's me. I could only give you an estimate. There's no way for me to know how old the earth is because I've been down that rabbit hole too. I've looked into strontium and carbon and all the different techniques of dating, polonium halos, the whole 9 yards. I've looked into all of it. And the truth is there's a problem with every dating method in the world, including text. The problem is you have to assume something in order to get information from that thing. Yes, you can carbon date a thing if it's organic. You can't carbon date rocks. You can't date rocks at all because all sand and all rocks are the same age. They were all created at the same time. That's why you can't get a date from a rock. But you can date organic things because we have this thing called carbon-14. And the sun produces carbon. And when you die, you stop absorbing carbon-14. As long as you're alive, you're absorbing it from the sun. Well, carbon-14 has a half-life, and it's 5,550 years, something like that. 5,500 years. That's the half-life of carbon-14. So that's a date you can measure, right? When you can see how much it has decayed and guess how long it's been there, and based on that, you can guess how old something is. But the problem is you have to assume that carbon-14 has always happened at the same rate that it's happening today, that the atmosphere has always been exactly as it is now, and that the world has always been exactly as far away from the sun. And, you have to assume that it's exactly as it always has been in order to get that date right. And if it's any different, the date is wildly different. That's why you get wildly different dates when you carbon date stuff. So, all dating methods being flawed, the only real way we have of knowing is what the old ancient people wrote down. And so I can give you an estimate based on people that have been alive and wrote stuff down from Adam. I have no idea how long it was here before Adam, and I have no idea how long Adam himself was here. But from the time he had children, that's when we started recording things. And I can give you an estimate. It's about 6,000 to 10,000 years from that point. It's about 2,000 years from Adam to the flood. It's about 2,000 years from the flood to Abraham, and it's about 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus. And it's about 2,000 years from Jesus to us. So you can do the math. It's between 6,000 and 10,000 years that we've been here. How old the earth itself is, I have no idea. I would be comfortable saying anywhere between 20,000 years and 50,000 years. That sounds reasonable to me, but I don't know. The one thing I know for certain is it hasn't been here for millions of years. It's just not. You can look at the salt content in the ocean and tell that it hasn't been here that long. The ocean hasn't anyway. You can look at a lot of things like the Grand Canyon. You can look at the Sahara Desert. You can look at how far the moon is away from the earth. You can look at a lot of things and tell we haven't been here for millions of years. It's just too new. There's too many things that you can see how things have changed just since your childhood, and you can work backwards from that. And if it stayed at that rate, there'd be nothing in a couple of thousand years. So, yeah, it's just a guess. I have no idea. But it's a good question, though. Thank you for asking it. Amanda says, it's me. I know for 100% it's at least 44 years old. Right. I'm 100% sure it's at least 50 years old. Kevin Cox says, hey, Jake, what's up, Kev? Nice to see you, my brother. Are you enjoying your winnings? Fab Daddy says, rocks would say 4 billion years old by measuring degraded uranium. Well, again, you have to assume that uranium has always degraded at that rate in order for that to be an accurate estimate. You can't actually make that assumption because you don't know. So that's a wild-ass guess, and you know it. But everything else in the world would suggest otherwise, so that's not a good wild-ass guess. When you start adding scrutiny to the dating methods, they fall apart rather quickly, which is why I don't have a lot of stock in what they have to say. You can watch my show Hyperbowl, and I do an episode on dating. You can check it out. Fab Daddy says, new rock is lava. No, you're incorrect. Lava is lava. Rock is not lava. Storm Shark 23 says, carbon dating wasn't found flawed. Okay, you believe what you want to believe there, Storm. Welcome to the show. Tell me what you think you know. John says, the world is not old as my socks. I believe that. Some rank socks you got there, buddy. Amy Elizabeth says, like, shared, and invited some friends. Hey, y'all. Hey, Amy, how are you doing? I know you're in a little bit of trouble out there. Everybody, please say a prayer for Amy and the people around her, and if you can help, help. Linda Davis says, hi, Amy. Smiley face. Amy says, speaking of floods, I'm stuck at home. I know. I saw your video. Amy says, hi, Linda. And Amanda says, hi, Kevin. Linda Davis says, Amy, did you guys get hit hard with the storms? Apparently. Linda said that. And Amanda says, hi, Storm, welcome. Fab Daddy says another way would be ice core samples. Also, you'd have to assume that ice has always been there. You don't know when that ice was deposited. That's the problem. There's a lot of assuming going on. So if you want an accurate estimate, you have to have accurate samples. You have to know for certain. The only way you could do that would be to drill down to the core of the earth and get something from the center of the earth and hope that it's datable. Because you can be reasonably sure it's been in the condition it's in since it was put there. Nothing has affected it otherwise unless it was magnetic. And we can't do that, despite people touting how advanced we are. 8 miles. 8 miles is the limit to our ability to drill into the earth. And that's like the skin of an apple. If the apple was the earth, it's not very far. Unfortunately, as big-headed as people want to be, the more science continues, the more they realize that they're absolutely wrong about everything. And the top scientists will admit that now. They didn't always admit that. It used to be that you could hide behind, well, this and that or such and such. You can't do that anymore because the people that said all of that are now recanting and saying, well, we really don't know. You don't know. It's like the brain, for example. You know who the best brain surgeon in the world will tell you he doesn't have a clue how that thing works. He's just guessing. And he is the top brain scientist that there is. There's nobody better than he is. And he don't have a clue. Not a clue. Not even a little bit. He's throwing darts in the dark. He'll tell you that himself. Science has been propped up for many, 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 many years, and I mean the capital S part, by other scientists, to be the end-all, be-all, the authority on the subject of everything. Unfortunately, it's not. It's just a method of how to go about thinking about something. It is not the end-all, be-all of knowledge. It is just a method of understanding what's in front of you. It's not always right. By its very nature, it's wrong because you have to falsify for it to be science. That's part of the steps. Test, repeat, observe, peer review, falsify, on and on and on and on. That's how it works. Amanda says, hi, Amy. And Patty says, I listened for a while. You held your own, and they went down identity politics, stereotyped you with smoking and teeth and just you superficial judgments, and that let you know the argument was over. Right on. Right on. I love it when they attack my smoking, though. They can't fathom, these young people, that some people do stuff because they want to, because they like it. They can't understand that. They've been told so long that there's things that they can do and there's things they can't do. They don't understand what it means to be free. They think I don't understand what smoking is. I do. I've been alive a long time. I can't be this smart and not know what smoking is doing to me. But I like it. So there's that. So I love it when they use that as an argument for my intellect. Really? You think smoking makes me less intelligent? I beg to differ. Nicotine is incredibly good for your brain. Amy says, yep, it flooded here. It floods here annually, but this was a huge one. And at least 3 counties are under a travel advisory because of the flood water. But I'm safe, and this year I'm stuck at home. Well, at least you're safe. That's what's important. You didn't lose anything. Amanda says, Storm corrected and said was flawed. I saw it. Oh, it was? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Storm. If I got onto you, I thought you were saying it wasn't flawed. It is flawed. Most of them are flawed. And the problem with dating is you get wildly different numbers every time you do it. So they've made an art out of picking the number that most suits the thing they're looking for, and then they call that the number. They'll run it until they get a number similar to what they want, and then they'll call that the number. But before they get that number, they get wildly different numbers from both ends of the spectrum. It is very flawed, and I'm not sure it even does any good to do that. I'm not sure it gives any good data at all. So I don't use that form of dating when I look at things. I don't consider those numbers, other than that's what some people have said. I do apologize if I read that wrong, though. That does tend to happen in text. Fab Daddy says layers, which all can be explained by liquefaction, Fab Daddy. That don't take millions of years to get layers. If you don't believe that, look at the canyon that Mount St. Helens left overnight. Has as many layers as the Grand Canyon does, only smaller. And it happened overnight while everybody was asleep. Amy says, what are we talking about? Ice? No, we're just talking about age, dating in general. Somebody brought up ice core samples, which is fine if you can assume that the ice has been there the whole time, but you can't. It's a funny thing about ice. It freezes and it melts quite regularly. Randy Humphreys, welcome back. He says, the Bible says that with the Lord, a day is 1,000 years, and that 1,000 years is a day. Yeah, the Bible does say that at one point, but it ain't in Genesis. That part of Genesis, it's the article the and a 24-hour period day. I hate to tell you that, but the creation week was 7 days, period. 24-hour periods. Also, trees were created on day 3 and the sun was created on day 4. So if that's 1,000 years or 2,000 years, how did they survive that long? They need sunlight. They can survive overnight. They can't survive for 1,000 years. But I get what you're saying, and I like where your head's at. And it's when it's referring to 1,000 years as a day and a day is 1,000 years, it's referring to the Lord's day, which is the millennium, the end of all of this. When Christ returns, that period of time is considered the Lord's day. And it'll last for 1,000 years. And it'll be over like that. And that's what it's referring to. It'll be like one day. Amanda says, hi, Randy. And Fab Daddy says, how old is Earth is the discussion? Well, it's a question that was asked. It's not the only discussion. And it's up for grabs. I would tend to believe what the Bible says, but the Bible only gives you a vague answer that involves people. I don't know how long the Earth was here before people came. Apparently, and if you read in between the lines, and you have to read between the lines because it doesn't say it outright, but there are things in the Bible that allude to something happening before creation. Now, I don't know exactly when that was. I don't know exactly how long that lasted. I don't know exactly what was going on during that period of time. But before the first sentence in Genesis, something happened, something big, some kind of war in heaven. The Bible alludes to it, but it doesn't outright tell you about it. So there's no way to understand exactly what that is. We can guess, and we got some pretty good indicators, but you have to kind of guess into that. There's no other way to do it. So most people just leave that alone. Genesis 1:1 is the beginning. It wasn't, but, God was here for a long time before Genesis 1:1. Some might say forever. And Amanda says, hi, Rand. I read that one. Amy Elizabeth says, hi, Fab, and thanks. Jordan Scott Bills, long time no see, brother. How you doing? Hey, you guys. Nice to see you, Jordan. What say you on the subject? How old do you think the Earth is? Amanda says, hi, Jordan. And Jordan says, Ben Carson. Ben Carson? The brain surgeon? No, he's not the smartest brain surgeon. He is a brain surgeon. He's not the number one top chief guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's a Jewish guy. Jordan says, hey, Amanda, and it's me, says, heliocentric or egocentric? Egocentric, most definitely. I think geocentric is the word you're looking for, but you hit it on the head. It is egocentric. Amy says, zombies eat brains. Some people are safe. Right. Right on. Safe and Sound says, what? Hello, Safe and Sound. Welcome to the show. Did something stump you? Do you not understand what's happening here? It's a conversation. It's a conversation in the form of an abstract, which means it can go anywhere. It's an abstract conversation. Would you care to join? Want to put your 2 cents in? Or do you want to clutch your pearls and act astonished that people have conversations that don't follow the narrative? I'm guessing that's where that what is going to go, but we'll see. Nonetheless, welcome to the show. Fab Daddy says, it's over 3,000 years. Medusa, the Joshua tree, proves that. No. The oldest tree on planet Earth is 4,500 years old, period. And it's not Medusa, it's Methuselah. And it's in somewhere in California National Park or something. Its actual exact location is hidden because nobody wants to lose that tree. They don't want anybody messing with it. But it is 4,500 years old, which is exactly how long ago the flood was. So 3,000 years till that point. And probably another 3,000 years to Adam, going backwards. And by Adam, I mean Adam, the first people, not Adam, which is the first bloodline of the Jews, or the 12 tribes of Abraham. Jews are only one of those 12 tribes, but you know what I'm saying. Amanda says, hi, Safe, welcome. And Randy says, I believe that Earth is no more than 1,000 years old, maybe even 7,000 years old. I tend to lean in that direction, but I can't say for sure because all you can do is guess. There is no definitive way to find out unless you die and ask God. I'm not that curious. John H. says, Jake won. Simple. Star. Thank you, sir. God bless you. It's Me says, the book of James talks about double-minded. Nice. What's that got to do with what we're talking about? Double-minded means you think one thing and then you think the other thing. It's called flip-flopping. Lots of people are guilty of that. That has nothing to do with the age of the earth or what we're talking about, unless you're referring to my title, which says Mind Manners, and we can talk about that. Amy says, God created everything. He's the one that determines how long a day is, and the earth could be billions of years old. It's not. It can't be. No, it can't be. Could be insinuates that there's evidence that it should be. It's not. No. Look at the salt content in the ocean. It's 3% or 7%, depending on who you talk to. And the reason it is that is because when it rains, the rain washes down into the ocean and takes salt from the land with it and salinates the ocean. That's why the ocean is salty, and fresh water that comes from springs in the ground is fresh. Ocean water don't spring from the ground. It's part of leftover from the flood and ice flows and things like that. And there are vents in the ocean that put material into the ocean, water or otherwise. But it doesn't repopulate like a lake does. So that's the reason that salt water is salty. And if you just look at the amount of salt that's in the ocean and know that it has risen in our lifetime, they can test it and see that it's rising, because every time that we have storms and it rains or anything like that, it ends up in the ocean. And it takes the salt from the sand and from salt flats and stuff like that with it. So just on that alone, can't be million years. It can't be 1 million years old, let alone several. There's a lot of salt deposit in 1 million years. 1 million years is a whole lot longer than a few thousand. It's 100 of them exactly. Randy says, you are a very talented and smart man. Thank you, Randy. God bless you, sir. I am one of those things. Man, definitely. Fab Daddy says the oldest tree is 5,000 years old. Siri told me. No, Siri's wrong. Or is rounding up, one or the other. Patty says you're talking about the catapult, the overthrow, which happened before Genesis 1:1. Yes. I'm not using that word because it doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from the Kabbalah. And there's differing ideas about that. It's not clear, so I don't teach it. I don't teach things that aren't clear. I don't teach the Trinity either, even though I believe in it. It's not a thing that I can articulate clearly, so I don't touch that subject. Same thing with the catapult. But the fact that there is an idea in the Bible that alludes to something that occurred before Genesis 1:1 means that I can't accurately state the age of the earth. That's a thing you have to guess. And I think it's that way on purpose. I think that if God wanted you to know, he'd have told you. Amy says, pearl clutchers cause arthritis and wrinkles. Amen. Amen. Patty says, catapult may start with a K. It does, but that's all right. I knew what you were talking about. Randy says, hey, to everyone, I've missed y'all and the educating. Well, thank you, Randy, and I missed you too, buddy. Man, this is a good cup of coffee. Thank you to the people that provide the coffee for the show. This is a regular cup of joe. That's the way I like it, and that's the way I drink it, baby. Don't you want to have a cup with me and talk about the age of the earth? If so, get yourself a cup, go to the kitchen, pour up a nice hot cupper, and let's get to talking. If you don't have a cup, you can get one in the description below. I recommend the first one. It has my face on it. It is fantastic. However, there are many, many new choices, including stainless steel tumblers with the UntetheredLive logo on it. It's beautiful. It holds your coffee hot for hours. It looks great on a coffee table. It can scoop up liberal tears by the gallon. And if you chuck it at somebody, it'll leave a nice big red mark. So get one while supplies last. Also, like, subscribe, share, support, join, and super chats are available in the chat box if you want to show a little bit of love. You want to throw a little clang-a-lang my way if you want to. VJ. You can do that right there. But I would ask you to do the CashApp thing because I'm a little bit low in the coffers. That's $ jakejohnsonband on CashApp if you want to help out that way. One last thing. If you would like to have a place to hang out with everybody outside of the YouTuberverse, outside of the oppressive censorship of YouTube and pulling your comments and Jake reading everything you say, if you just want to send pictures, videos, texts, and chats to people you like, you can do that over at facebook.com/UntetheredLive family. The link is in the chat. I appreciate your patronage. Go check it out. It's a wonderful place to hang out and get to know everybody and keep up with all things Untethered Live Universe in the same place. So I appreciate that. Now back to the show. Also, the link to my store is in the chat also if you would like to go check out my merchandise. Merchandising. Anyway. Amy says, hi, Randy and Patty. And Jordan Scott Mills says, the Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago, if I remember correctly, scientifically speaking. After being impacted by a Theia, which partially became a larger Earth, the larger Earth, and the rest became the moon. Isn't it funny how they know all of that? It's like they watched a video or something. Is there any evidence of that anywhere? Or did somebody just make that shit up whole cloth and put it in a book that we all repeat like a mantra? I challenge you to go find a textbook, any textbook in the world, mostly in America, and read what it says in the first sentence. It will lead with billions of years every single time because it's trying to program you to think like that. There is no evidence for any of that. None whatsoever. Not even just a little bit. None. They made it up whole cloth. There is absolutely no way any human being on planet Earth could tell you how the Earth formed and what caused it and where the moon came from. They don't have that information. Not even a little. They don't even have information that might lead them in the direction of thinking that. They made it up, whole cloth. It is fake. Fake news. But good memory, Jordan. That's exactly what the textbooks say, all of them. Amanda says, Tribble got introduced to a tennis ball today and she loves it. The ball is bigger than her head, but she's having a blast with it. Yep, my little puppy. Jordan says, this has been seen, evidently, from the moon rock samples returned and studied. You mean the ones that they found out, 20 years later they were petrified wood? Don't believe me? Look it up. Specifically the one that Neil Armstrong gave to the Netherlands. Neil Armstrong gave a moon rock that he collected personally from the moon to the Netherlands, or one of the guys that runs the Netherlands, a prime minister or whatever. And then years later, they decided to have it appraised so that they could put it in a vault. And when they had it appraised, they found out it was petrified wood. Funny thing about the moon, not a lot of trees. How about that? That was in the newspapers, by the way. They don't like to talk about those things. Here's the problem with all of that. It's all subjective and it's all made up. There is no evidence to vouch for any of that. They didn't see anything on the moon. They picked up rocks and left. Those were not geologists. Those were not scientists. They were pilots. That's it. They played golf on the moon and left. Picked up some rocks in a bag and left. Then, years later, that's if they went, by the way. That's if all of that was true. Years later, scientists looked at rocks that came out of the bag and made a bunch of hypotheses based on what they saw. I don't know if you've ever looked at a rock. There's not a lot of information printed on it. So you have to guess everything about it. It's a rock. The one thing it has in it is rock. There's no living thing on the moon, so there's nothing organic in the rock. It's just a rock. And to top it all off, it's not even rock, it's volcanic rock, which is not rock. Rock is formed by mud hardening over time. Turns into sandstone, then it turns into limestone, then it turns into granite. That's how it works. Lava is not rock. It's ash, it's pumice. Jordan says, I read that one. Amy Elizabeth says, Jordan, that's interesting. I've not heard that theory. Yep, if you think about it, if you go back and look at scientists, their answer for everything, how Saturn got its rings, how Uranus is on its side, how Earth got the moon the size that it is, everything, how Pluto isn't actually a planet, their answer is that something bigger collided into it and it became something else. How come half of Mars is thick and half of it's thin, and it only has two little rocks that are moons, which aren't really moons, they're really just asteroids? Also, something collided with it too. That seems to be the go-to question, or the go-to answer for every question. And it's nonsense every time they say it. Salt water is salty from fish pee, says Fab Daddy. If you believe that, I got a bridge I'd like to sell you. Fish pee, and it evaporates into the water. That there's not enough fish in the ocean to salinate the ocean. Come on now. Fish pee. There's also a theory out there that says that sand, meaning, silicone crystals, is from fish shit because they eat and then they poop out sand. That's a theory. That's their theory, that why Hawaii has 3 different beaches that are colored different colored sand. That's the theory. Fish shit. That's wrong too. When you go to looking and you actually study science, you either have to do one of 2 things. You have to follow the evidence or you have to follow the narrative. That's the only 2 ways you can do it. Here's the problem. If you don't follow the narrative, you don't get published. You don't get friends. You don't get funding. You don't get to be part of the club. That's the truth. If you don't believe that, go check it out for yourself. Become a scientist like I did and see what happens. You can't think freely if you're a scientist. It doesn't matter what field. It doesn't matter what country. It doesn't matter what genre. If you're not following the narrative, which is what everybody agrees to, you don't get to be a scientist. that people hear from. If you find something that goes against the narrative, they fire you. Don't believe me? Ask the woman that found red blood cells and dinosaur bones. You don't know who she is because she got fired and blackballed, and she can't work anywhere anymore because she found something she wasn't supposed to find, and she had to check it 17 times because she did not want the answer she was getting. But she got it and was honest about it, and they fired her for it. That's happened 3 times that I'm aware of in the last 15 years, 20 years. Now, when you realize that, and you realize that it's a big club and you're not in it, you have to make a decision. How important is the truth? You want to be accepted? You want to make money? You want to be popular? You want to have all the accolades? Or do you want to get to the truth of the thing, why you became a scientist in the first place? One way doesn't have a lot of rewards. One way makes you a podcaster on YouTube with a 1.3K subscribers and making about $100 a month. The other way, you get famous and become Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an actor, not a scientist. Or you become Bill Nye, the science guy, who's an engineer, not a scientist. See a pattern? Think about it. And George says, Earth had a twin, essentially, and was impacted about 30 to 50 million years ago after it formed. A large part of Theia became Earth, and the rest, the moon, part of the, hang on. Chat jumped. Anybody got a picture of this Theia, by the way? I think I overshot it there. Hang on, I'm getting to it. Yeah. Became the Earth and the rest the moon, part of the heat in the Earth. Okay. How do they know that? Is there any evidence that there were more planets in the solar system? Did any of the planets have to move? Because I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we're tidally locked. We're gravitationally locked to the sun. That's why the planets are where they are, because of their weight, and it's ordered that way. If you do, it's from smallest to largest, and a couple of little things in between for weight. Just like if you put a weight on a tire, it's the exact same thing. It is a centripetal universe, and centripetal force keeps things where they are. And if you destroy one of those planets, something has to take its place, and everything has to adjust so that it has the same ratio, the same balance, so that it doesn't fly apart, which means everything has to move like the asteroid belt. There's some evidence that there used to be a planet there, and if you'll notice, it's in between Jupiter and Mars, and if you'll go back to the Bible and read Joshua's story, you'll find out there was a period in time when the day lasted for 48 hours. The sun stood still for 48 hours. What does that mean? That means the earth moved. That's the only thing it could mean. The only way you could get the sun to stay in the sky for 48 hours is to physically move the earth. Now, why did it move? Well, because there was a planet there, and it blew up. Now it's just an asteroid field. Now, if you go back to ancient Samaria, they have pictures on stone walls of the solar system, and on their depiction, there are 10 planets. Interesting that. The ancients knew there were 10 planets. Specifically 10. Not 12, not 20, not 4, 10. That's why one of the reasons they downgraded Pluto from a planet to a moon, because they don't want that to be an accurate number. But it is. It's accurate, and they knew about it. Question. How do you know Theia existed? How do you know it hit the earth? And how do you know the moon came from it? How do you know the moon hasn't always been there? How do you know anything? You know because somebody wrote it in a book. You have never seen the evidence for it, nor do you know the evidence for it. because you don't even know who wrote it. You just know that you were told that enough times you remembered it. That's how logic usually works in the world. Most people that claim to be smart aren't. They just remember things. Remembering and knowing are not the same function. I try to deal with what I know, and that puts me in an uncomfortable position a lot of the times, because a lot of things that people claim to know, they don't actually know. And I either have to go along with it or stop them and say, hey, that's not right. And that makes me a lot of enemies. It's hard to be my friend when I stop you and say, no. That's not how life works. I understand. But I can't in good conscience agree to something that I know not to be true. There's that. Jordan says, is from that, a.k.a. the reason there's lava and volcanoes. I must have missed one. Hang on. Nope. That's it. A part of the heat in the earth is from that. From Thea. No. Because there's not lava in the earth. There's nickel in the earth that's liquefied because of the pressures that are involved in the earth trying to cave in on itself. And that causes the rock above it to melt, creating lava. The lava was already there in rock form before it melted. See, it's the opposite of what you're saying. You know, volcanoes don't continuously erupt. Sometimes they go dormant for years and years and years and years. The reason for that is because there's no melted lava to erupt, or there's not enough pressure to push it out, which means it has to get hot enough and melt the rock that's there to push it out. Lava is a reaction, not a cause. Where did the nickel come from? That's a good question. Matter of fact, how did any element form? Because we don't have any evidence that anything past a certain point can be made by a star. I'd have to go to, there's an episode of Hyperbole that deals with the periodic table, and I'll explain all that to you there. Go check it out. And I really don't want to rehash it, but it's very complicated. But the stars can only produce certain metals. They can't produce helium, for example, or hydrogen, for example. Where did that come from? How did it get formed out of a star? You don't know the answer to that question because there's no answer for it. We can't get close enough to a star to even see it happen. We're only guessing that that's where it comes from. I don't know if you know this or not. We hadn't been real close to any stars. Patty says, hi, Amy Elizabeth. And Amy says, everybody hit that thumbs up button, hit the 3 dots, and the menu comes down. Yes, please. There's 19 people. There's 20 people in chat and only 7 likes. Come on now. Hit that like button. It's free. Show a man a little bit of love for hosting a real conversation that goes anywhere it goes. You don't see many of those these days. Most places you'll get shut down for trying to express your ideas. In the world of free marketplace, this is the best place on the internet because we talk about everything. No holds barred. And I may disagree with you and spend time debunking what you just said, but I allow you to say it, and I give you the opportunity to argue back. Amy says, Amanda, I have a couple of new tubes of balls in storage. I'll send you a sleeve. Oh, nice. Thank you, Amy. Jordan says, Jake, have you ever considered desalination events occurring from plate tectonics, where vast swaths of ocean water are swallowed into the earth, leaving the heavier elements behind when it escapes? Yes, I have. That's called liquefaction. And to that I say, when that occurs, that's water going back to where it came from in the first place. That's the problem with that theory, because water came from underneath the plates. That's why we have plates. Before that, all the ocean that we have today was under the earth. Then it cracked open due to pressure and shot up onto the surface of the earth. And that's why we now have oceans. All the low places sank down and all the high places were pushed up. That's why we have mountains. If you'll look at mountain ranges, they all follow those trenches that are in the middle of the ocean where the water came from. So that's why tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are evidence that liquefaction is a real thing. It's called, let's see if I can remember what it's called. There's a book about it. I got to remember the book. No, I can't remember. Anyway, I can point you in the right direction, though. But no, it doesn't leave behind. That's not how water works, leaving behind the heavier things when it goes under the tectonic plates. If it, in fact, goes under the tectonic plates, which I don't know that it does. I haven't seen any evidence that that happens. But it's just returning to where it came from, and that means that the heavier elements would be there if that was in the water to start with. Which we happen to know isn't, because there are some places where there's still water underneath the earth in large quantities, and it's fresh, not salty. So salt has to come from the surface. It's a good theory, though. I like where your head's at. Keep going down that rabbit hole and find answers. Answer your questions, and that way you'll know. Don't just listen to the hypotheses. Look for the evidence that proves the hypotheses. If it's still a hypothesis, that means nobody found the answer yet. That's the problem. Like, for example, you would think gravity was a solid science, right? We know it. We know about gravity. That's a given. It's fact, right? It's a law of the nature. Look into it. It's still very much a theory. A gravitron is a theory. They don't know for sure that that exists. They don't have an explanation for how it occurs. It's just a working theory that seems to be correct, but they don't have any proof of it yet. That's the problem with a lot of science that people grapple with. They tend to think that it's settled. Science is settled. No, science by its very nature is never settled. It's always in flux, because you're supposed to be falsifying everything about the hypothesis until there's nothing left to falsify, and whatever remains, however improbable, would be the truth. Most people stop at hypotheses, and that's the problem. That's why we're having this conversation. But I do like what you're thinking, and I think you're on the right track. You just need to keep going. Amanda says, awesome, Amy, and she would love them. Thank you, those balls. She likes balls. She hasn't bit mine yet, but she's working on it. And Amanda says, hit that CashApp $ Jake Johnson Band if you love Jake. Thank you, ma'am. If you want to, Mm-hmm. Amy Elizabeth says, I tend to lean towards the scientific theories. God makes it happen. Yeah, God makes everything happy. What you mean, you people, Jake? I hear you. I'm a dude playing a dude pretending to be another dude. That's a good movie. Yeah, God makes all things happen, and our scientific theories are just that, us trying to understand the majesty of God. And science started out that way, and somewhere along the line it turned into an atheistic thing where everybody's trying to disprove God. That's the wrong way to do science. You need to go back to the original way, which is to edify the glory of God by understanding his mighty works. That's what science is for. That's why God allows us to do it. Amy says, there's a Gus Grisham museum south of me. His report card was C in science. Jordan says, Jake, are you saying that because America is a scummy country, that means we didn't go to the moon? Like both can and are probably true, Lamau? Liars can do things too. No, I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I've never said we didn't go to the moon. I think it's highly probably that we did go to the moon. But There's a but. If I were a general, and yes, NASA is part of the Air Force, it is a military installation. It is not private sector. It is government-funded military organization, and the reason we went to the moon in the first place and do all other things that NASA is involved in is because of the space race with Russia, because we've been in a Cold War with Russia from the beginning of the USSR for whatever reason, or the end of it, however you want to look at that. But it was a strategic thing. The reason we needed to get to the moon first is because the moon is a strategic military outpost. You have a view of the Earth that you don't have on Earth. It is a good place to perch if you want to win wars. So if I were a general of good, lucre, I would not be showing on national television live as it occurs my strategic location, or how I got there, or what I used to get there, or how many people went there, or what I was bringing with me when I went there. That sounds stupid to me. Now, either our generals are stupid, or that didn't happen. What you saw on TV was 100% fake. If we went to the moon, you didn't see it. That's my guess. And yes, liars can do things too, mostly lie. And we don't live in a scummy country. This is the best country on planet Earth. It has its problems, and the people that run it are definitely scummy. But the country, fantastic. USA, USA, USA. I hear you though, Jordan. I'm with you. I'm a few steps ahead in the chess game. I get what you're saying. Amanda says, "Oh, geez, we had this debate last night." Right on. And Jake, is there water on the moon? Yes. Yes, there is water on the moon. It is in the form of ice. We don't know if there's any liquid water on the moon. We haven't seen that yet, but we have seen some suspiciously flowy sand, so it might be. It's possible. They're still doing the research. There's also a blue spot on the moon that they can't see it because it's so small, so they really can't get down to what it is yet, but they're working on that. And so, yeah, there's ice on the moon for sure. There might be water under the surface of the moon. However, the moon is hollow. They proved that when they crashed a lander into it and it rang like a bell for 24 hours. At least that area of the moon is hollow. And also, all of the craters on the moon are the same depth. You ever notice that? All of them. Same depth. It's like half the depth that a crater would be. Why? Well, because the surface of the moon underneath all of that regolith is solid as a rock, or solid as iron, and it rings like iron, so it might be iron. So there's some screwiness about the moon for sure. But it definitely has ice on it. And it has an atmosphere, but it's very thin and it's not always there. It forms over time and then dissipates, and sometimes you can see it if you're looking when it happens. The moon is very interesting. It is not at all a geologically dead environment like they've been trying to tell you for years. It's not dead. It's very much alive. And it probably has some active volcanoes on it at some place or other, or inside of it. There's a lot of lava tubes on the moon, which means at one time it was very active volcanically, much like the rest of the solar system. Amy Elizabeth says, India is the limestone capital of the world. Indiana is the limestone capital of the world. I don't know about that. I think Egypt has you beat. But it might be. There might be a lot of limestone in Indiana. I don't know the answer to that. Patty says, I could never believe that we went to the moon. Well, it's not that I couldn't believe we did it. I wanted to believe it. And when it happened, I was watching, not the first time. Obviously, I was born just before or just after the first time. The first time was 1969. I was born in 1974. So I watched the other ones take place on up to the last one, which I think was, Apollo 11, something like that? The last successful landing on the moon? I can't remember. Anyway, I saw the Challenger and the Discovery explode. I was rooting for them. I want to believe in space travel. I want to believe there's something out there that we can find that'll be beneficial to us here on Earth. I want this stuff to be true. I've watched every episode of Cosmos that ever aired. I'm deeply, deeply involved in the Science Channel and Discovery Channel and History Channel and all that stuff for many, many, many years until they started airing Bigfoot and mermaid movies and doing it like it's a real documentary. And then I happened to notice something that I'd never noticed before, that all those science programs that I watched, every single ounce of all of the evidence that they purport, all cartoons, none of it's real. It's all fake. And when I realized that, I had never actually seen another planet, even though I've watched every episode of Cosmos that ever existed. I'd never seen the surface of Mars or the Earth from the moon's perspective. That everything I saw was a cartoon. All of the space launches, the stuff you see the astronauts doing in space, that's all filmed in a studio that's not real. And when I realized that, I realized I was being lied to. And then I started looking for what the truth might be. And I was not very happy to find out what it was. And it's a sobering moment. It will break your ego, because most people's identity is tied to the moon landing. It's a big thing. It's a big deal for our country. And most people have pride in that. It's a part of who they are. It's part of their childhood. It's, nostalgic. The right stuff. We had the astronauts that went to the freaking moon. Unfortunately, nothing adds up about anything they say post going to the moon. All of the pictures they show, all of the interviews they've given, all of the... here's an idea. Where's all the telemetry data? They had all of that stuff at Houston, all those computer banks recording every little detail of that flight. Remember? They had go cap, go com, go so-so, blah, 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 blah. Liftoff. Remember all those people? Not one piece of that information is available. Not one. They lost a metric ton of tapes of telemetry from the original moon landing. A metric ton of telemetry is gone. Sold it. They have no idea where it went. Nobody's come forward with any of it. It is not at NASA. You can't find any information on it. It does not exist. That's a little creepy. That's a little weird. It's a little strange that the most important thing mankind has ever done, not 1 ounce of telemetry from that trip exists. And everybody acted weird afterwards, and people died because of and during, and things just don't add up. They made a phone call to a landline in 1969 from the surface of the moon, despite having not brought anything to make a phone call with. Things bother me, and I can't let it go. And I don't expect you to believe me. I'm not telling you so that you will believe me. I'm telling you because it's the truth as I see it. And you'll either believe me or you won't. You'll either drink my Kool-Aid or run from me screaming and hollering like your hair's on fire. Either way, I'm going to say what I think is true. And I think we didn't see the moon landing. I think if it happened, it was done in secret like a military should do. As a military op, it should be in secret. We shouldn't know about it. Also, when Elon Musk went and got the astronauts that NASA couldn't seem to do, couldn't bum a ride on the Soyuz rocket from Russia or anything, he went and got them at a fraction of the cost. How is it that he built rockets and have tested them and brought people to and from the space station on his rockets at a fraction of the cost, and we're still paying like $52 million a day for NASA? Something like that. Makes no sense to me at all. Something is weird. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You think I'm full of shit? Let me know. I might be, but I think everything is bullshit. Everything. And I have reason to believe it. I'm not just talking out of my ass. Jordan says, it depends on the lava. Different lava turns into different stuff. Ask Hawaiian. Ask a Hawaiian. Well, I've seen many things from Hawaii, and I understand that, but it's all rock. Randy Humphrey says, most of these scientists are full of bull. Truth. You really want to get some smoke blown up your ass. Start talking to these people that are into particle physics and string theory and things like that, where it's literally their job to make shit up every day. They live in a fantasy land. And they're trying to explain the workings of the cosmos by inventing ideas that don't exist out of whole cloth, like black holes, like dark matter, which there's no evidence that any of that exists. I tend to think it don't. Amy says, ouch, my Uranus. My Uranus is on its side. Uranus is on its side. Yes, it is. It rolls like a ball when all the other planets spin like a top. And it's weird because that's not how the conservation of energy works. When something explodes, it goes outward in a certain direction. If you don't believe that, get a merry-go-round and put some kids on it and start spinning it, and you will see a very interesting piece of physics occur right before you. First thing, they'll holler faster, 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 and you add a couple of football players and get it going faster and faster and faster. Now that it's spinning about 60 miles an hour, suddenly the kids will be quiet. They'll stop screaming, and they'll concentrate on holding on because they feel the pull. And then you keep it going faster and faster and faster. It gets up to about 82 miles per hour. It gets up to 120 miles per hour. And at that point, they reach terminal velocity, and something very interesting occurs. Children start flinging off of it, all spinning in the same direction, no matter which direction they come off, until they hit something solid. That is the conservation of energy. That is momentum in action. And if all things came from a disk and the sun erupted into sunlight and blew all the planets together, all planets should be spinning in the same direction. Yet they're not. And I think God did that just to screw with people that think they're smart. Not only are there two planets that spin opposite directions, there's several moons that go the opposite direction around the planet than the other moons do, and some of them are on their side with an axis adjacent to the planet that they're orbiting. There's a couple of those too. And it just, there's no way that that could have happened naturally. There is no law in physics that will allow that. Yet there it is. And the more you look, the more things like that you'll find. Did you know that an atom can be in two places at the same time? And it depends on what one atom is doing that the other one will react to it no matter how far away in time it is. It's called spooky logic. And it's a real phenomenon. Atoms appear as they're needed. They don't just exist. They're not just here. They show up when they're necessary. Kind of like God's creating it in real time. So the more they look into it, the worse it gets for their case is what I'm saying. A good illustration of this is there's this mountain climber, and on his back he's got a backpack that says atheist on it, and he's climbing the mountain with all of his strength, and he's struggling to get to the summit, and he's working as hard as he can, and when he finally reaches the summit and pulls his eyes up over the edge, there sits a theologian with the Bible open. He's been there the whole time. He's chilled. He's reading his Bible. That's exactly what's happening here, whether you like it or not. Atheists, you're on the bell curve. You're heading upwards. You'll get there eventually. I have no faith, no doubt that you will. I have faith that you will eventually reach the summit of knowledge and realize that God has been there the whole time. But right now, you're still in infant stage, claiming there's no God. Amanda says it changes depending on the cooling rate and gas content, Jordan. True, but it's still rock. It came from rock. It becomes rock again. But while it's hot, it's lava. The devil wears a lab coat, says Patty. I thought he wore Prada. Fab Daddy says it takes 4.5 billion years to a fish population to make it salty. No, it doesn't. There's no science anywhere that says that. No math anywhere on earth that says that. That's wrong. That's not even wrong. It's silly. Sorry. How do you think urine gets salty? Do you even know what you're talking about? You know, it doesn't invent salt out of whole cloth when you pee. You're peeing out stuff that's in you, that you got from putting stuff in you, from the place that you're at. You know, you eat and then you pee. You drink and then you pee. The salt comes from your surroundings. Think about what you're saying there for a minute. It takes 4.5 billion years to create a lie about fish pee. A lie that's not based in any science whatsoever. Jordan says, half of Mars is thick and half of it is thin because God didn't want Mars to be thick with 2 C's, so he did that and made it a singular C, thick. Okay. Or, bear with me, Mars had a volcanic eruption, and so lava covered half of it, and it made it thicker. And also, there was an ocean on Mars at one point, so the lava went around where the water was. It didn't go into the water, meaning that the crust has always been as thin as it is in that area. You do know that the largest volcano in existence that we're aware of is on Mars. It's called Olympus Mons, and it is something on the order of 31 miles tall. It is huge and has more than enough capability of covering half the planet with lava flows, which is exactly what happened. That's why half of the Mars is thick and half of it's thin. Not because something crashed into it and broke it. We have no evidence that one planet can crash into another planet. We've never seen that happen ever once. Here's a trivia question for you. You know how many movies you've seen where somebody had to get in the pilot seat of a plane and they got on the horn with the tower and the tower had to talk them down? That has never happened in real life ever. No one has ever attempted that before. That's a movie thing. I bring this up because there's a lot of knowledge out there just like that. How many movies have you ever seen where somebody jumps in a cast iron bathtub and deflects bullets or fire? How many movies have you seen that did that? That's never happened in real life either. A bullet will go right through a cast iron bathtub with no problem whatsoever. It'll go through an engine block. It'll certainly have no trouble getting through a cast iron bathtub. These are movie things, like most of our science. Amanda says, LOL, Amy. And Jordan says, oh, no. I agree science is a huge club of like BS, and I agree with that. Realistically, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing I tell the flat earthers. I literally don't care. I have to work tomorrow, basically. Right? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I don't care if the earth is flat or round. It doesn't affect my life at all. As far as I'm concerned, it's flat because I don't ever see the curve. I'm always standing on flat ground. So I don't care. Does that mean that it's flat? No. As far as I know, it's round. That makes sense. Does that mean that it's true? No, because I've never been out there. I don't know what it looks like. I can't answer that question with a knowledge. I can answer it with a hypothesis. And when somebody asks me, they don't like that I give them that answer that way. But I'm sorry, you don't know either. And if you say you do, you're lying to yourself. You're not lying to me because I know better. Amanda says, right, Patty. And then my chat jumped. April Rain, good to see you, sweetie. Aaron, what's up, brother? It jumped a lot. I'll find it eventually. Hang on. Boy, it went a long way. Oh, here we go. There we go. Amy Elizabeth says, that's like the evidence of giants they found. It just disappeared from the Smithsonian. That director had it destroyed, supposedly. Nephilim in the Bible, right? This is a true thing that occurs. Anything that don't fit the narrative, they want to get rid of it. It's just the way it is. I sense the question coming. I feel it in my bones. I'll go ahead and answer some degree. Why do I care? Because I believe in truth, and because I feel like the world has gone off the rails with a bunch of nonsense. And so as long as I feel like I can die if I know somebody is saying something that is true on this medium we call the internet. And that's me. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I'm definitely telling you something that's truth. That's a short answer to that question that I feel coming. Jordan says, like 4.5 billion years or 6,000 years, who cares? Jesus is still king. I still have to work tomorrow. Like, it doesn't change anything, except if you deal in the world of things that you know. Now, not everybody does what I do. I happen to be an orator. I speak for a living. I talk to people. I deal in things of the nature of things. That's what I do. So it's in my interest to know things. And also, I'm the kind of person that wants to know how things work. And you can't know how things work if you're basing it on faulty information, which is why this is a problem. It might not matter to you, but it matters to me. That's why. And it does change things. It changes things because we live in a very special place. And science as it is tends to try to make it sound like a insignificant, unimportant event. It's a random act, has nothing to do with anything. You just happen to be here at the right time. It's not important, like you're saying. The problem with that is all of this, everything you see, everything you can't see, was created for you. You literally are the center of the universe, metaphysically speaking, not literally, because God created the whole thing for your benefit so that you could live this life. So you are very important, and you are special, and we are God's creation, and there is nothing else in the universe like us. This is a special place, and it's important to understand it. That's why. April Rain says, hey, y'all, I'm here. Sorry, I was watching KY. KY? Kai? Hi, Amanda, Jake, and all of chat. Oh, I see you're cheating on me. Right, I got it. April says, Amanda says, hi, April. And April says, Patty, Amy, John, Jordan, good to see y'all all. And Patty says, Jesus is still king. He's always been king. Nobody can depose him of being king. Believe that. Jesus is king once and for all. Never any difference. And Jordan says, yeah, I'll send you a picture of Florida coast if you want your email, Jake, as Thea has been submersed into earth and recycled so many times. Well, how? If it hit the earth, then it can only be recycled once. And by the way, I grew up in Florida. I've seen the coast many, many times. I've walked it. I've done a lot of research in Florida. I understand why Florida is what it is. And if we have been here for so long, how come erosion hasn't completely removed Florida from the edge of the United States, being that it is a sandbar? Seems like erosion would hit there first. But you can send me a picture. That'd be fine. I accept any and all information. My mind ain't made up on nothing. If you got something that'll prove me wrong, I want to see it. Amy Elizabeth says, I live in the present, not the past. Right? I live in the present, the past, and hopefully the future. April says, LOL, Amy. And Amanda says, Jordan, a picture of artist rendering, ? Yeah, is it a real picture or is it a picture that somebody drew? Because I can draw pictures too. That don't make it right. Bill Bennett says, good night, Untethered Live family. See you, hope to see you all tomorrow for Bible study. Have a great night and God bless. Bill, thank you for being here, buddy. God bless you too. Amy Elizabeth says, hi, April. And Amanda says, good night, Bill. And April says, good night, Bill. Much love. And John says, has Saturn really got rings? Yes. No, Saturn does not have rings. Saturn has a bunch of ice floating around it that from this distance looks like rings. rings are connected. Saturn's not. This planet has rings, the same kind of rings. And I don't know if you know that or not, but it's true. They're man-made, but we have them. April says, God bless you, Bill. And Jordan says, my point is it's inside us. Literally, you and me are part of Thea, most likely, if you think about it. I can't think about something I have no idea actually ever existed. That would be false thinking. I don't do that. I think about things I can see, test, and observe. And I try not to think about things that I have no idea whether are real or not. But I hear what you're saying. To the best of my knowledge, though, there is no granite inside of me or basalt or any of the building blocks that make most planets up. So don't think that a planet is inside of me literally or any part of it. But we were made from the dirt of this planet. So we do have that, clay. I guess it could have came from another planet, but I don't see why it would have. God said it came from this one. April says, we don't really know nothing. I believe what I feel and see. Right on. Jordan says, I don't know any of those things, Jake. I just choose to believe them. First true thing you've said tonight, and I appreciate that you said it that way because that's exactly what I'm saying, and that is the truth. And I appreciate that you pointed it out in that fashion because most people make a choice to believe whatever narrative they believe, and that's quite all right. I'm not downing you for that. I'm just saying there's a belief and then there's a fact, and those two things are not the same thing. Even when it comes to believing in God, if you don't know, you believe, and believing is not fact. I choose to want to know. I don't want to believe in God. I don't want to believe in the universe. I want to know how things work. That's my purpose in life. It doesn't affect anybody else unless you're listening to me and you choose to do that. And then you choose to believe that I'm onto something and you follow my narrative, which is still a narrative because I don't know any more than you do. That I appreciate. And thank you for that. Just like I choose to believe in God, God doesn't change, science does. Again, I ask you, why does it matter? I knew that was coming. Jake, why do you care? I knew that was coming because I am a creation of that God that exists, that never changes, and I am interested in knowing the creation that he put me in at this particular point in time, and I was given the brain to expound and think and question and observe, and I would like to use that instead of just letting it go to waste in my skull. That's why it matters. It matters because truth matters. It matters because I don't want to live in the matrix. I don't want to live a lie. I don't want to assume things are true because somebody said it and never look for myself. I don't want someone else to have the authority of what I know to be true. I want to know. I am somebody special in my mind. I want to know what truth is. I want to be able to express a thing and it be taken for truth. I want to be able to say a word and it have authority. And the only way that I can do that is if I'm right. And the only way I can be right is if I go look, because I didn't start out knowing anything. I had to gain the knowledge that I have. And I do draw a difference between knowledge and memory. Yes, there's a lot of things I've memorized, statistics and such. But I go and look for myself, too. I don't just rely on the statistic. I look at the statistic, and if it agrees with what I think is true, then I go look and see if it's real with my own eyes, with my own intellect. That's why people think I'm smart. I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if it matters to somebody that doesn't care, but I care. That's why it matters. Why do I care? Because God created me to care. Jordan says, Lamau, how do you know there's nickel inside? Jake, did you go down there and look? No, it's come up and I've seen. And also there are acoustic ways of finding out what's down there. There are ways that you can tell what something is made out of based on vibrations and based on acoustic sampling and different things, and also testing the ground and understanding what it's made out of. And the 8.5 miles that we have dug down, they've taken samples from that 8.5 miles, and you can infer ideas from information that's there. That's how you know. To answer the question in short, I don't know, but that's what the going theory is, and I said that when I said it. The theory is there's nickel in there, not lava. It goes both ways, man. No, it doesn't, because when I said that, I already took into account that I knew. It doesn't go both ways, because I'm not espousing things that I think. I'm espousing things that I know to be true. See what I'm saying? There's a difference. I'm not thinking here. I'm talking here, meaning I've already done the thinking and the research, and I've come to that conclusion based on evidence, and now I'm saying it out loud. I don't do that beforehand. I don't talk before I think. So, no, it don't go both ways, but I hear what you're saying. And April says, Jordan, that is true. It's me says, well, what's behind the ice wall? Why all the secrecy? Well, they would have you believe nowadays there is no secrecy, and you can go to a peninsula on Antarctica and be in Antarctica, and you can see for yourself. You can't go back there, but you can go to that peninsula for sure. They'll give you a reason because it's a mutually agreed upon safe space. Everybody, all 108 countries signed a treaty that says nobody can touch that spot. So you can't go there. If you shit, you got to pick it up. If you drink, you got to take your trash out with you. You can't pee on the ground. You can't lose a hair on the ground. You can't upset the area in any way. So it's best just not to go. And that's why. What's behind the ice wall? I would guess more ice. It is at the southern tip of the planet, which means it can't go on forever. April says, aha. And hi, it's me. Amy says, at least Jake isn't pissing off any Catholics tonight, but it's early. Right on. I hear you, darling. At the end of the day, though, Jordan, it's all entertainment. I'm just here to make noise with my face and cause people to think. That's what I do. So that's why it's important to me, because if I say something that causes you to think, then I've done my job. Doesn't matter what you think, as long as you're thinking. And nickel came from stars, bro. Heavy metals formation inside dying stars. Prove that. I happen to have done a little bit of research into star formations and such, but I would like to see your proof of that. Matter of fact, I would like to see how you could prove anything past hydrogen. April says, LOL, Amy. April says, uh-oh. See no evil, speak no evil. I think that's what that is. Randy Humphrey says, the Bible says that God put the moon in its place and give light for the night and the sun for the daytime. That's exactly right. It also says the moon provides its own light, and it does. They just discovered that too recently. The moon effervesces, for lack of a better word. Have you ever been out in the forest in North Florida at night, up in, like, say, Lake City, and see the trees glowing because of all the phosphate that's in the ground? The moon kind of does that too. It's not very bright, and I don't know if you could even see it with the naked eye from the earth if the sun wasn't shining on it, but it does make its own light. That's a fact. Hydrogen is primordial from the beginning of the universe and essential recycled endlessly. Where did it come from then? Hydrogen is an element, correct? Elements are lesser parts of a higher order of things. Where did it come from? And how do you get gold from hydrogen, being that hydrogen is at the top and all by itself on the periodic table? How does it happen? You're getting into territory you're not familiar with, so I'd caution you to back up right now and just assume that there are some things that are unexplainable. Because if you go down this rabbit hole, I'm going to introduce you to a bunch of thoughts that will terrify you and cause you not to be able to sleep at night. And I don't know if you're ready for that or want that. Amanda says, it obviously does not, Jordan. No, it doesn't. Obviously does not. Nobody's ever seen a star up close. You don't know that that even happens. That's something that Carl Sagan said. That's not something you can prove. You have no idea where gold comes from, for example. You say it formed in a star, but show me. Show me a star that makes gold right now. Show a star that burps gold out into the universe. I want to see it. Show me any star that has gone supernova in the last 5,000 years where you can see any element that has come from it. Any element, even hydrogen. You can't. You've never seen a star blow up. You've seen the aftermath of one, and it happened a long time ago, according to science. So you have no idea whether elements come from stars or not. Weird star stuff. Well, it sounds good. Prove it. Show me a star that it contains what is inside of me. And how do you know it's in there? That's my point. That is typical scientific jargon. People say things all the time that sound great. There's no evidence of it, though. Matter of fact, let's go back to the beginning. Show me any star how you know how far it is away from us. Show me the method by which you measured it. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. Well, first of all, prove that the sun is the same thing as the stars. You can't. I know you'd like to think you could, but you can't. There's nothing you can see from a star that resembles the sun in any way, color or otherwise, size or otherwise, unless you look at a cartoon on the Discovery Channel. It don't correlate. If you see it with your eyes and use scientific measurements, there's nothing about a star that's the same as the sun. Only we assume that that's a star also. So let's say that it is. Let's skip that argument. How did you know it was 93 million miles away? Show me the math that made that equation possible. Show me the instrument that measured it. Did somebody hold up a tape measure? How did it work? Mathematical equation? What was that equation? By what method did they use to derive that number? You're going to find out, much to your dismay, if you go down that rabbit hole, that somebody made that number up a while ago, and we've been repeating it ever since. But nobody ever checked that guy who made it up to find out if he was right. We just assume he was. That's the problem with a lot of science. There's a lot of people who learn things out of reading stuff out of books, and nobody checked the validity of the book. You know, Charles Darwin had a lot of interesting things to say in his book, too. And some people have begun to check those things, and they have fallen apart miserably. That's just one scientist. Who wasn't a scientist? He was a theologian, by the way. He had one degree, and it was in theology. That's the problem. Jordan said, I read that one. Amy said, Amanda says, and I read that one too. April says, hi, Randy, welcome. Amy says, God formed the elements in the stars and distributed them throughout his heaven and earth. Well, that sounds good. I'm asking how you know that. Because it's on a periodic table. Somebody discovered the elements and wrote them down. That doesn't say where they came from. Somebody hypothesized they came from star stuff, because stars explode, and you got to have something that it's making stuff, or you don't have anything to prove where something came from, because the answer cannot be God put it here like he wanted it. That can't be the answer. So you have to have something that produces it. So you have to have a star that explodes. Well, if a star explodes, it has to be born. So you have to have a star nursery. So you have to look for that too. And then you have to have a nebula. Well, a nebula is just dust. And guess what happens? Let me show you a trick. Here's really important stuff. This is science. Are you ready? Star. Dust. Star. Dust. See what's happening here? That's the only thing we can see from planet Earth. That's what a star nursery is. We look, there's no star. We look, there's a star. It must have formed. How did it form? Show me a picture of it forming. What process causes a star to form so that it can eventually blow up and distribute this stuff across the universe? And show me a star that has done so and show me the elements being distributed. You can't, because they don't have that evidence. That's a hypothesis. It's not science. It's theory. That's the problem. That's the thing we're discussing. Mind matters. Mind manners. The hell with tariffs and Elon Musk. I know it hurts. I know it makes you mad. It made me mad too, believe me. I argued the same thing you're arguing many, many, many moons ago. Emphatically. I'd get right up in somebody's face and tell them they were wrong until I was forced to think about it. And it won me over. I'm sorry. There's just no evidence. Don't let it get to you, though. I know it makes you mad. I'm trying to make you mad, but in a good way, a friendly way. I'm trying to cause you to think for yourself. I'm hoping that's the end result here. I'm hoping that you'll stop and think about it and get mad at me all you want, but think about it tonight for the next few days. Really put your heart into it and think about it and take stock of what you think you know. The Greek says, know thyself. Well, in order to know yourself, you have to know your surroundings. In order to know your surroundings, you have to know yourself. So you have to do some serious soul searching. And when you do, I want you to recognize that you've been lied to an awful lot in your life. An awful lot. By people who you trusted to tell you the truth. By people who are supposed to be in your favor. Have your best interest at heart. They're just blatantly lying to you face to face. And when you realize that, then you can question all of the things, one by one if you need to, until you come to the consensus that most of what you know is a theory. It's not true. It is likely, but it isn't fact. And it's only likely because we don't have a better answer. And I posit the answer is because God did it that way. And if you can be comfortable with that, that's the only answer you need. Because God created it that way. I'm not comfortable with that answer. I have to keep looking. Meaning, when I die, me and God are going to spend a great deal of time talking, if he'll allow me. Because there's some things I need to know. Stuff that I can't answer on this earth. Like where all the elements came from. Because there's no evidence they came out of a star. None whatsoever. Other than somebody saying it. It's me says, hi, April, how are you? Mr. Moon says, what is your approach to the narrow path? There by the grace of God go I, Mr. Moon. That's it. I have no approach. I'm not worthy of approaching the narrow path unless Christ sees fit for me to show up. April says, welcome, Mr. Moon. And Amanda says, nickel comes from rocks and or minerals. Yes, but how did they get there? Rocks. We are supposing were created at some point, right? Science would have you believe that they were deposited there in seams from something, some cataclysmic event that caused it to be there. Yet there's no evidence that those events took place other than somebody saying so or hypothesizing that they occurred sometime in the past. We do have a few asteroidal strikes on Earth that we can point to, but sadly enough, there are no ore in those deposits other than whatever the asteroid was made out of. And they say, well, that's how we got all these seams of nickel and iron and gold and all that all over the world. Only most of those are found under mountains, which would defeat the whole asteroid impact thing. So let's forget that. You ever seen a mine? Most of them are in the mountains. Anyway. Or on rocky ground, like in the desert. So, how did it get there? Either God put it there as he created this world for us to use as we find it, as we see fit, or it was deposited here over millions of years because a star blew up somewhere and it traveled through space and hit the earth at velocities that would bury it in the ground in seams, like coal. I don't know. Which one sounds right to you? Amy says, speaking of the moon, hi, Mr. Moon. M-O-O-N, that spells moon. April says, I'm good, it's me. And you, love? Amanda says, hi, Mr. Moon, welcome. And yes, please do, everybody. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It's free, and you get conversations like this every week of all kinds of areas, not just this one. We go everywhere. So if you would, hit that subscribe button, press the bell icon so you get notifications when I'm going to be online. Smash that like button. It's free. It's effortless. It's right in front of you. It really does help the channel with the algorithms. Helps us get recommended to other people. Won't you do that, please? Share this video with somebody you love. Better yet, share it with somebody you don't love. Bring them into our family. Make them part of the fold. Be part of their solutions, not part of their problems. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking about. Question me, curse me, bless me, challenge me, confront me, conform with me, drink my Kool-Aid, make your own Kool-Aid. As long as you're thinking critically, that's what I'm after. That's what I really want. And hey, if you love the content and you'd like to see more, if you want to help us reach more people and grow into the podcast that we deserve to be, you can do that by joining the channel. Join the channel or buy a t-shirt or throw a super chat in the chat box. If you really want to help out, though, if you want to help me keep these lights on, if you want to help my coffers get a little bit of something in them so I'm not out here working my tail off for nothing, you can go to paypal.me/jakejohnsonband, or if you're a CashApp user, please hit that Cash App. Go to $JakeJohnsonBand. I appreciate you very much. Every little bit helps. It is a win-win. It is a blessing to me for sure, but it's a blessing to you too. As I've proven time and time again by reading the Bible, we live in a reciprocal universe. Ask, and you will be answered. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Give, and you will receive. Those are out of Jesus' own mouth. So trust in that. Now, I'll do everything in my power to answer all your questions and comments, as I always do right now. However, I might cut off short if we keep going because it's already 10 o'clock and I'm only halfway through the chat. So we'll see how far down I get, but I'll try. And I'm 45 minutes behind. But I'm working. I'm working hard over here. Amanda says, hi, Mr. Moon, welcome. And Patty says, Jeremiah 4 says a lot. It repeats Genesis 1. Earth destroyed without form and void, waste, germ, or Jeremiah. 4, no man survived, no bird survived, not Noah's flood. It even says all cities were destroyed. Yeah, but it's talking about Noah's flood in that part of the Bible. But yes, something happened. There are allusions to it. There is no definitive answer I've looked in any religious text, but there are allusions to it in the Bible that suggest something happened before Genesis 1:1. I don't know how long that was. I don't know what occurred. I don't know what was here of the earth when it happened. I don't know. I don't know if it happened while God was creating the earth, afterwards, or shortly before. I don't know. There is no answer to that question. You just have to understand there are things that we cannot answer today. And Jordan says, actually, no, Jake. Liquefaction is what happens to sand during earthquakes, and it works like a fluid. You're probably thinking of subduction, when one plate slips under another, bringing water with it. I said I couldn't think of the word, but it is liquefaction. It's just a form of it that involves rock. Yeah, that is what I'm thinking of. There is a word for it, and I can't think of what it is, and there's a book about it, and I can't think of the name of the book. I will get back to you on that, but I can't think of it right now because I got so many other things flowing through my head, but I got to go do some research and find that book, and I'll recommend it because it is a good book, and it is accurate, and I have looked into that before. But yes, all things, the reason we have plates is because of Noah's flood. The earth cracked, and when it did, all of the water that was under the earth came out. And that's probably how the Ice Age started, which I'm assuming happened after Noah's flood for a period of time. I don't know that, but I know that when you shoot water, I mean, think about it, there's 10 miles of rock on top of the water, and the crack forms and the water shoots out like a water hose that's pinched off. It went all the way up into the atmosphere and then rained back down, probably bringing ice with it to the poles, which is how weather works, and rain everywhere else. You notice that Noah's flood, where Noah was not very violent. His boat just rose. So It was violent where it was happening at. It was nowhere near where he was. So, according to the rest of the world, the water just rose. So, I'm assuming that ice fell down at the poles, putting the ice where it is today. I'm assuming it wasn't ice before that. That's an assumption. I don't know. But all that makes perfect sense if you look at it logically. But it's an assumption because you don't know. There's no way to find out. But I am thinking about water mixed in with the dirt and with the sand and with the rocks. Yes. It's me says car shopping, April. Well, we got to find It's Me a car for sure. Chris P says, haha. What's it called? There's a book about it. I can't remember the name of the book. That's exactly right. And most of the people here know me, so they know I'm not bullshitting them. You're new here, so take the good with the bad, buddy. Stick around, you'll find out the name of the book when I remember it or when I go find it tonight after the show. This is a live conversation. It was not planned ahead of time, so I don't have my footnotes in front of me. This is not, I repeat, this is not a lecture. This is a conversation, which means I'm going to be calling from things that I know from 30 years ago. I'm going to be calling from things I've forgotten. I have forgotten more than you may ever know. Believe that. So that's how conversations go. Like I said earlier, you're new here. Most of these people have known me for years. So they know I'm not bullshitting them. They might disagree with me, but they know I'm telling them from my heart what I think to be true. You should probably try that. Patty says, no more flooding after Noah's flood. Correct. No more big flooding. There's plenty of flooding. No more global flooding. Amy says, I'm stuck at home because of a flood. Right. That's a local flood, though. It's not a global one. I have seen none of that water. Amanda says, Chris, welcome. And hi. April says, yes, all cities were destroyed and the Atlantis is buried somewhere in the Sahara Desert, and you can see the ripples of salt, but I don't care that was then and this is now. Well, that's called, damn it, there's another thing I can't remember. It's the eye of the Sahara, though, but there's a name of it. I can't think of the name of it. It's a weird word, like, does anybody know what I'm talking about? The little place in the Sahara Desert that looks like an eyeball from space? Yeah, it's Atlantis, what we think. It fits the description of Atlantis. But I can't remember the name of the place. It's in a town or something there, or a little country there. I can't think of what it's... The Richat structure, that's it. Thank you. The Richat structure. And it is, by all definition, what they described what Plato described Atlantis to be, is in the right place. It has all of the right hallmarks, even the red and black sand or stones. It's got it all, even the concentric circles, which could have been full of water at that time. It's a very interesting little structure. You should check it out. And the reason we haven't been there to check it out more thoroughly is because it's a militarized place. And if you go there, they're liable to cut your head off, which is why there aren't teams of scientists going there now to check it out. At some point in the future, we'll go check it out when things have cooled down a little in that area. And when, you can't, satellite phones probably don't work in that area. It's so remote. So it ain't like you could call for help if you got in trouble. So you don't really want to go there right now. Much like where Mount Sinai is right now in Arabia, it's behind fences, behind enemy lines. And if you go there, they'll shoot you. So don't do that. But it is there. I've seen pictures of it. April says, LOL. Jordan Scott Mills says, Amy, yeah, exactly. I just believe God is awesome and can do immense things. I'm literally a predeterminist Christian, and that believes free will is an illusion, as God is all-knowing, like it ain't hard. Except free will is not an illusion. God himself told you had free will. That's why evil exists, so that you have a choice. It's not an illusion. If you don't believe that, ask anybody that's ever blew their brains out whether they have free will or not, because they absolutely upset the apple cart by doing what they did. It's their choice to do so. That's free will. God does see all things, but it's impossible to know all things. And the reason that is because they haven't been done yet. Any choice that you are about to make, you haven't made yet. Now, God can see all of the possibilities of the choices you can make, but he's not in control of which one you make. Therefore, he doesn't exactly know which one you make. But that's not a diminishment of God. That's physics. You can't know something that hasn't happened. You can know the possibilities. God is all-knowing. He's outside of time, space, and matter, which means he can see the whole thing at one time, beginning to end. We can't because we're inside of time, space, and matter. We can only see what's happening right now. And we can remember what happened before, and we can hope for or imagine what might happen next. God doesn't have that limitation. He can see the whole thing. As to which direction you're going to take, if you had free will, then that means he doesn't know which direction you're going to take. He just knows the possibilities. He knows all of the choices that you have. Which one you choose is yours. That's free will. So he's got the whole world in his hand is a great song, but it's not biblical. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible backs up that God gave you free will so that you could make a choice willingly to love him. That's why you have free will. So I hope that helps. It ain't hard. April says, oh my goodness, I love that movie. Haha. And Jordan says, I absolutely agree that science isn't doing things well. Well, there you go. That's why I'm in the position I'm in, to look for myself, because I lost faith in them finding the answers because they went down so many ridiculous rabbit holes and started putting out so many hypotheses that could not be proven, that were just made up out of whole cloth, that I lost faith in that system. So now I depend on what I know and what I can prove. And other than that, I don't accept. That's no shade on you. Understand that I'm not disrespecting you or downing your belief system in any way, shape, or form. I'm just asserting mine. You'll either choose to believe it and follow it or disagree with it, but that doesn't mean we can't be friends. And April says, God is good. Amen. Amen. Debbie says, have you seen The Shack? Just curious. Any particular shack? One in particular? You have to be more specific. Is it a movie? Is it a song? Is it a place called a shack that isn't a shack? Is it a shack attack? Is it a Big Mac shack attack? Is it a Knick-Knack, Patty Black, Give the Frog a Loan? Shack attack? Big Mac? Rack? Are we talking about Shaquille O'Neal? What are we talking about, Debbie? And welcome. Jordan says, in terms of institutional sciences, yeah, not great. Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. And the people that are being chosen to represent science are even less great. And it's a little weird. It's a little disheartening, actually. April says, hi, Debbie. And Amanda says, hi, Debbie, welcome. And Aaron says, I'm drinking, but I'm listening. I'm driving, but I'm listening. Don't drink and drive, Aaron. Driving, but listening. What's up, Aaron? Good to see you, my friend. Amanda says, hi. And Amy says, I believe in free will. So do I, because the Bible says it's there. I believe the number one authority in all of my learning is the Bible. I believe what it says from cover to cover. Mine has my name on the cover of it, and I believe that too. It says Jake Johnson, and I believe that. Every word in the Bible is true. That being said, I believe that real science and biblical knowledge can go hand in hand, and in fact started out that way. If you'll go back and look, all of the sciences, all of the different divisions of science, every single one of them started from a Christian a long time ago. And then it turned into something else in the 1800s at Cambridge. You can find the minutes of that meeting on the internet somewhere. Aaron says, what's up, family? What's up, Aaron? Good to see you, buddy. And Amanda says, drive safe, man. And Patty says, I don't think we went to the moon at all. I don't know if we went to the moon at all. I don't have any knowledge of it. I know that I've talked to a lot of people that build things, and they've said that it's impossible. I've talked to a lot of people that build things, and they said, yeah, we win. I worked on it. So I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge of us going there. I saw the rockets go up and over my head and out into the ocean. I don't know where they went from there. Aaron says, hi, Amy. Amy says, hi, Debbie. Glad you made it. And Debbie says, howdy, y'all. Mr. Moon says, thoughts on Judgment Day. Yep, we're absolutely going to be judged one day. And that day is not that far off. We're definitely closer to it than we were yesterday. The way I assume that works is you live on this earth until you die. And then when you wake up, you're standing in front of the white throne judgment, ready to be judged, in which time everything you've ever done in your life will be reviewed. You will be judged on your good deeds and bad. You will be decided on then whether you're going to go to heaven or cast into the lake of fire with Satan. That's the only thing the Bible says. And those are my thoughts on the subject. But that's a good question, and thank you for asking it, Mr. Moon. Anybody care to elaborate on what they think the Judgment Day is all about? Batshit Crazy says, cool thinking with eyes. I'm thinking about my eyes. Cool. It's weird, Batshit Crazy. What's up, buddy? Amy Elizabeth says, DWL, driving while listening. Right on. And Amanda says, hi, Batshit Crazy. And Amy says, hi, Batshit Crazy. And Jordan says, Jake, I agree. Call of Duty was right. We actually went to the moon via stolen Nazi teleportation technology. Changed my mind. I can't because there's no evidence. You might be right. Also, no, the U.S. government is scummy, man. I absolutely see them doing that, LOL. Right. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but I know that everything about what they presented is fishy. I know that. And it don't mean it's wrong. It might be completely right. Sometimes things that are real look fishy, like platypuses. Platypi? Platypussy? How do you say that? A platypus. More than one platypus is a platypus. Is it a murder of platypuses? How does that work? Is it a herd of platypuses? Is it like fungi? Fungus? Platypus? Platypi? They're real, but it's awful fishy. It's a venomous mammal that lays eggs with a duck's bill and a beaver's tail. Did I mention it was venomous? Weird critter. Anyway, it's real, but I think God was probably trying out the herb on that day. I'm just guessing. Platypus. Patty says, okay, yes. From what I saw, bad production of Going to the Moon. Right on. It was a bad production. It was a third generation reproduction of the actual footage. Nobody was allowed to see the actual footage. They literally broadcast it from a projector onto a wall, and then the news channels filmed the wall and then broadcast that on live TV. That's why it was so grainy and weird. Weird. Everything about the moon landing is suspicious. It's weird. Go watch the debriefing of the 3 astronauts when they came back after they got out of decontamination, which wasn't necessary at all because they were in an air glide camper trailer with an air conditioner on top. Decontamination much? I think it was for show. Anyway, they spent a week in that thing, hanging out in that camper trailer with an air conditioner and windows, by the way. It was not airtight in the slightest bit. Anyway, after that, they had a debriefing in front of the press. And it looks like they're hostages. It looks like they've been told, I'll kill your family if you don't repeat what I told you to repeat. Go watch it for yourself and you tell me what you think. It's weird. That's not how I would react if I just got back from the moon. April says, batshit crazy, how are you? ? And Debbie says, in grade school, my son asked who filmed it pertaining to the moon landing. Yes, who did film it? Apparently they filmed it. They were not photographers. They were pilots. And their cameras were mounted on their chests, which means they couldn't adjust anything. They could just turn it on and turn it off. And every picture was magazine quality, every single one of them. You could see the reels of them on nasa.gov. Go look for yourself. There's not a bad picture. There's not a thumb in the frame. Nothing. Not an out of focus anything. It was a Hasselblad camera, which they sell on the market today, that was unmodified, not even a protective layer around it, not even putting foam rubber over it. It was exposed to the vacuum of space the whole time and took perfect pictures every time. Then there's footage, film of the thing taken off. Did they leave somebody behind? It panned up. How did that happen? They didn't have remote control cameras in those days or motion capture. This was 1 year after Star Wars was filmed. Or 1 year before, rather. Explain it to me. Inquiring minds want to know. April says, Aaron, much love. And Debbie says, LOL. Batshit Crazy says, both lunar poles have ice. Confirmed. Yes. The Big D says, something retracted. The Big D says the moon is real. Of course it's real. It's made out of cheese. Don't you know that? Amy says, Ozzy, bark at the moon. Right on. If the earth isn't flat, duh. Who said it was? Did you say it was? Amanda says, hi, the big. Welcome. Batshit Crazy says, ARB not rated. Sorry, not bad. ARB not bad. RB not bad? ARB not bad? What are you saying, Batshit Crazy? Is that Armalite? Armalite rifle? AR? April says, the big, welcome. Jordan Scott Mill says, the moon is made of cheese. See, I told you. There's confirmation right there. Peer-reviewed cheese. Specifically Swiss cheese. It's not actually hollow. It's just on average more hollow due to the bubbles. The blue spot, of course, is high-grade blue cheese. I'm with you. I like it. April says, LOL. Amy says, oh, of course not. Because if the earth was flat, cats would have knocked everything off the edge by now already. True. That's a true fact. And that's how you know. And knowing is half the battle. This nonsense is the truest stuff you've ever heard, the Big D. If I was you, I'd pay attention, because you won't learn anything about this in class. Now, if you want to live your life as a moron, pay attention in class. April says, oh no. And Amanda says, LOL, true, Amy. And Amy says, yummy cheese. That's why we can't go to the moon, because if we went, we'd eat it, and then we wouldn't have the moon. Or it'd be like that DreamWorks commercial. April says, I saw it on the challenge. I saw it to the Challenger when I was in 6th grade, and we were all outside watching it, and boom, so sad. OMG, tragic. Yes, I was outside too. I was in the 5th grade. Mrs. Brown's class at Cumbie Elementary School, out in the parking lot, and watching it go up and split into 3 different directions. It was quite interesting. We all just kind of went back inside. Nobody said anything. I don't think that's what we were supposed to see. All right. Big D, you're out of here, buddy. Patty says, yep, I want my Judy Jetson jet, right? How come we don't have flying cars yet? What's up? In the 60s, we knew we were going to be flying in cars by now. How come? Turns out people are crappy pilots. Amy Elizabeth says, I remember when the Challenger blew up. 1985. 85-ish. It might have been later. I can't remember. I think I might have that confused with the day my dad died in 85. It's in that area anyway. Aaron says, I'm home. And what's DWL, Amy? Driving while listening. It's me says, did they actually break through the dome the Bible speaks of? Well, the Bible doesn't use the word dome. It uses the word firmament, which if you break that word down and transliterate it from the Hebrew, it means something akin to like a scale that's flattened out with a hammer strikes. It's flattened out like a shield flattened out. So that's where we get the idea of the fishbowl or the dome firmament. And there's plenty of evidence that we live in a closed system. I covered some of this last night because gas and vacuums don't work well together. There has to be something in between. So we live in a closed system. It's the only way we can have oxygen. What does that mean? I have no idea. It could be Jell-O. I don't know. But there is something between us and it, I promise. And April says, driving while listening to Aaron. Amy says, driving while listening. Aaron says, much love, Rain. Showers. Nice. And Amanda says, I'm glad you made it safe, Aaron. DWL means driving while listening. And Jordan says, I've seen other planets, Mars. Open a book, Jake. There's literally dozens of American missions alone with real photos of celestial bodies. I grew up on it, this dude. Well, while you're growing up on it, I would like to point you to a little fella from NASA that did all of those paintings, and they are not real photos. I hate to tell you this, but real cameras don't go on missions to Mars. What they do is they have something akin to LiDAR. I don't know exactly what it is, but what they do is they take light images and then it reads out in numbers, and that's sent back to NASA in the form of numbers. And then they take those numbers and then translate them into colors and digitize a picture from those numbers, and then they have an artist paint it. So it's a guesstimation all the way around. I hate to tell you this, but you've never seen a picture of Mars. Unless you believe that the rovers took pictures and that's a real picture. However, I would like to ask you what they're doing over there in Greenland right now with their rovers on the ground that looks suspiciously like Mars. You can find that on Google Earth, by the way. Just go over there and find the rover on Earth. You'll find it in Greenland or on an island off of Greenland. April says, much love, Ron. Amy says, the Illuminati has the telemetry. Just kidding. Somebody's got it. I can tell you who don't have it. We don't have it. A metric ton of tapes missing. Gone. Nobody knows where they're at. That's fact. That is the most important thing that mankind has ever done. And nobody has any information about it. None whatsoever. They can't rebuild the rockets today. Even though they're laying down in Florida right now in a junkyard, they cannot redo that. They don't have any idea how the scientists did it because they didn't write anything down either. It's all a mystery. NASA themselves say it's a lost technology. We'd like to go back to the moon, but we can't. We don't know how they did it. Interesting. That's from the head astronaut at NASA said that. Why did he say that? I can show you pictures. I can show you interviews of the people that work at NASA saying things they probably shouldn't be saying if we went to the moon 11 times. But yet they say things like that. And I wonder why. I don't know the answer. If you know the answer, tell me, please. I don't know the answer. Jordan says, Jake, want to see a real picture from the surface of Venus taken by the communist robot? There's a few. I've seen those pictures. Again, they're not pictures. I think you need to take a class on how a picture is developed and what a camera actually does. It's very much like the eye, only it doesn't focus. You have to focus it. That's not what's happening when they send pictures back from other planets. It's a different process by which you have to fake it. There's no other way. You have to fake it. You cannot see it unless you fake it. And I'm sure there's some scientists out there that can make sense of all those numbers on the dot matrix printer that they're using. But I can't. It looks like a string of numbers. and then it's turned into a picture. Yeah, I've seen those pictures. I was paying attention when they went to Venus, and also when they went to Titan, and also when they went to Mars, and every other place they've been. When they flew by Pluto, when they flew by Jupiter, I was paying attention. April says, I wouldn't want to go to space. I used to, but I've seen in movies the stuff that could happen. Well, movies are movies. Space is different than movies. I personally think space is a liquid. I don't think it's empty at all. I don't think it's a vacuum either, because two things can't be true at the same time that are opposite of each other. Something is different. Something is unusual about what we're being told. Space being a vacuum, if that's true, Earth can't exist. Atmospheres can't exist if you can leave it. If you can leave the atmosphere, which they say they've done, it can't exist in a vacuum. Even gravity can't make that work. There's no math that backs that up. So there has to be some kind of closed system. That's just physics. It's physics 101, actually. If you don't believe that, blow air into a tin can and then push it down into the ocean and see what happens. That's pretty much what a planet is in the middle of space. Not exact, but it's a good replica of it. Anyway, did anyone scoop you up yet, Amy? Says Aaron. And Patty says, at this point, we know. We know what? And Jordan says, there's a song called We Can Breathe in Space. They just don't want us to escape, LOL. Good song. I like it. I don't think it's true. I think if you open your visor in space, you're in for a good time for about 3 seconds. And then you turn into a rubber tire that's stretched all out and bleh, no liquid in you whatsoever. Because that's how things work in space. But, again, that's also a hypothesis because I've never been there. I don't know the answer to that in real life. April says, when I'm dead, my spirit can roam space then. Maybe. I don't know. Haha. Nope. When you die, your spirit goes back to the Father who gave it. There is no indication that your spirit has autonomy or agency after death. There's no word that says otherwise. The only thing that points to that is when Jesus said, you don't know what you're asking, they neither give nor take in marriage in heaven. That's the only thing. I think you don't know what you're asking is the part of that sentence that you need to think about, because they're assuming that there'll be relationships in heaven like there are on earth. They're assuming they'll even know their loved ones when they're there. And I think Jesus tells them, you're asking for something I can't answer you because you don't know the answer to the question you're asking. You don't know the question you're asking, let alone the answer. You're not prepared for that. So I'm not sure what happens after death, but I know it's different than this. But I don't think you're going to be floating around in space. You might be, but I don't think so. Amanda says there is fuckery afoot here. Yes, there's a lot of fuckery afoot in science. A lot of fuckery. What does that mean, you might ask? Imagine fuckery. It's afoot. Amy says, LOL, not that lucky. Right on. Patty says, not that lucky is a reference to whether she's been scooped up or not. And Patty says, I think everything is BS as well. I'm going to write a book about it one day. It's Me says, everything is bullshit. Ha, 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 LOL. I've got 2 buyers right there. So I might write that book one day. I got to compile some more information before I do, because I'm not quite prepared to die on that hill yet, because there's a few things I've yet to look at, and there's a few things I don't know yet. When I get there, though, I'm writing that book. Amy says, title of Jake's book coming soon. Everything is bullshit. Right on. One of these days, I'm going to write that book. Amanda says, absolutely, Patty. And April says, yes, write that book, Jake. Woohoo. I'm taking donations now. Anybody want to hit me up on CashApp? April says, LOL, Amy. Linda says, Jake, that's because a toilet seat I buy costs $25, but when the government buys it, that same one costs $1,200. Yeah, that's also interesting. A screwdriver costs $25,000. It's made out of titanium, but still. Debbie says the best fudge comes from Uranus. Ooh, gross. Yeah. Honey. Amy says, LOL, Debbie. And Amanda says, right, Linda. And April says, OMG, Debbie. And Amanda says, LOL, Debbie. And Jordan says, Jake, we've literally seen black holes. We've literally not seen black holes. That's a lie. That's a myth. That picture that circulated in 2013 was at the end of a cigarette at night. It was a hoax. We have not seen black holes. There is no evidence that black holes exist. That's wrong. I'm sorry. Look into it. You'll find out I'm right. We have not literally seen black holes. We literally hope that they're there because otherwise the universe doesn't make sense mathematically. It has to be a product of God. That's why black holes exist. That's why dark matter and dark energy exists, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. The answer would be God put it there. And that ultimately is what science is trying to prove, that God did not exist. That's ultimately the reason why all of these things, why quantum physics, why string theory, why dark energy, why dark matter, why black holes, why the Oort cloud. Here's a little thing you may or may not realize. All of the craters on the moon are facing the Earth. All of them. Except for one, and that's on the backside, and it's a big hole and doesn't look anything like the rest of them. Now, I'm not going to say all of them. The majority of them are facing Earth. How did that happen? Did something go around the Earth and hit it? No, it came from the Earth. So are all the comets that are in our solar system came from Earth during the flood. That's why they're there, and that's why they're not there anymore. That's why they keep disintegrating. The Oort cloud is made up out of whole cloth, just like everything else. It's a lie. There is no place out there where comets come from. We've literally seen black holes. Like at some point, you either believe what people are telling you or you don't. I don't. This is like people who say that that's Fox. I don't trust them. When you give a source in an argument, it's like, okay, then dude, WTF do you want? Right, I understand your argument. And yes, those people are morons. And unfortunately, those are the same people I'm arguing against while we're having this conversation. I'm not arguing against you. I don't blame you for what you think or what you know. I blame them for teaching it to you because they taught it to you in bad faith. And that's the problem. It's not you. I'm not mad at you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying anybody here is wrong. I'm having a conversation from authority. I'm appealing to authority. Whose authority? God, nobody else. I believe all people have the same gray matter between their ears and can use it. I believe that if you look at the same things I've looked at with the same intrigue, you would come to the same conclusion. That's what I think. I don't think I know something you don't know or aren't capable of knowing. I think we have different teachers. That's the argument I'm having. What do you want if the source isn't good enough? Well, you have to consider the source. You ever heard that expression, consider the source? What is the source? Well, Fox News in your analogy is the source. Okay, well, what is Fox News? Fox News is a news channel which went private back when Clinton was in office, and he took all of the media corporations and brought them down to 6 corporations and privatized the news along with everything else, media-oriented. And they stopped being news and started being opinion and personality-driven. That's when you started seeing people on the news drinking wine and speaking with regular language rather than that news speak that they used to do in the 80s and 70s. That's when all that changed. Fox News is a product of that. Roger Ailes came out of that school of thought. His job is to propagandize America leaning to the right. CNN's job is to propagandize America leaning to the left. And if you'll look at all of their arguments on both sides, that's exactly what they do every single time. They take a story and then spin it to the right or to the left. But the story is evident. You can see it. That is what it is. The spinning doesn't help, but it does create divides, and people get divided along those lines, and then they argue, and they're easier to control when they're divided. Now, as I've said many times in this podcast, and will say many more times, there is a difference between the narrative and the truth. The truth is what lies at the bottom of all narratives. That's what I'm after. So that means I am going to say things you disagree with because you've heard somebody else say something different. I'm going to say things that you think are unnatural because I get to the point in a certain kind of way. I'm going to say things that go against everything everybody's ever said. But that don't make me wrong. My job is to make you think. And if I'm doing that, I'm doing my job. Because ultimately, either we live in the devil's world or we don't. The Bible says the devil is the prince of the air. The word air is not a misnomer. It means the media and everything else in the air. That means that every piece of information you've ever gotten in your life came from one source, the devil. That means it ain't right. We live in the matrix. We live in a carefully crafted facade of a reality that is not the reality that is playing out before us. It's the bread and circuses of it all. The higher-ups, the elites, the people that control everything want to keep controlling everything, and the only way to do that is to keep you divided and to keep you on your heels and not allow you to see reality for what it is. It's much simpler than they're painting it, by the way. Most things are pretty simple. Occam's razor comes into play a lot. Whatever is the most easy answer usually is the true answer. Is it true we went to the moon? Well, yeah, it's possible. But what's the easiest answer? The easiest answer is they faked it because it's cheaper. Don't know if they did, but that's the easier answer. That would be Occam's razor at play. Yes, it is true that at some point you have to appeal to authority to somebody that says something that you don't literally know. You have to reach for people that know more than you do to win an argument. That is true. That's why we're having a conversation and not a debate. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. At the end of tonight, I'm still going to be 14 likes and $0. So it doesn't matter. You're still going to be convinced that I have stepped on your toe in some way by saying something you disagree with. And you'll still come back the next time and start a new conversation with me because I'm likable enough to come back to see again. So it really doesn't matter. But it's good content, and everybody that's watching this, whether they agree with me or agree with you, they are thinking. And we have done a good thing by that. So I stand by that. Amy says, Fudge Factory. Jordan says, Sort. I read that one. April says, Linda, lovely, good to see you. And Aaron says, Amy, where are you from? Aaron wants to know where you're from, Amy. And Amy says, that would be a name of a business, Uranus Fudge Factory, owned by some dumb guy. I like it. And Amy says, I'm in Lake Lemon, Indiana. And April says, Amy, I love you. Ha, ha, ha. She's got a great sense of humor, doesn't she? And Amanda says, OMG. Aaron says, I'm on Florida. I'm in Florida. April says, good one, Amy. Ha, ha. I'm in Florida too, Rod. And Amanda says, I left Florida, so I'm no longer a Floridian. Floridiot. Ah, that's a shots fired there, Aaron. Aaron says, that's what's up, girl. That's what's up, April. And April says, LOL, Amanda, you've never been an idiot, love. And she hooked up with me. That's something. Aaron says, LOL, Amanda, you're no idiot. I don't think so either. And Amanda says, Aaron, have you ever heard of New Breed? I don't know what that is. And Amy says, I'm salty. Have you been in the ocean lately, Amy? And Amanda says, oh, thanks, Aaron. Can you get salty? Amanda says, I can get salty. Have you been in the ocean? Have you girls been in the ocean? We're trying to figure out how the... Never mind. Amy says, stay salty, my friend. Right on. April says, LOL, Amy, I love sugar and salt. I'm an addict. Me too. April says, LOL, and April says, I love this conversation. Ha ha ha. Me too. I'm enjoying it immensely. And Jordan says, yeah, and God did that because he wanted it to be thick with one C, Jake. This can be scientifically inferred from observation. Okay. Right on. I didn't get the joke. Amy says, I'm a honey roasted peanut kind of gal, sweet and salty. Honey roasted peanuts. That sounds very nice. Oh, Jordan Scott Mills hits me with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Jordan. God bless you, sir. I wasn't dunning you for money. I was just making a point that this conversation is for content mostly. But thank you for that. And he says, don't worry, Jake. I don't think you stepped on my toe because you don't think the same thing that I think. Basically, it's all dogma. And at the end of the day, with modern science, I get that it's like that with history and everything else too. Right on. And that's exactly true. And unfortunately, us thinkers, us people that are, pillars of the community, us quality minds, the special people of the world, we're above you guys. Everything we know came from somebody else. We're like 25th generation. I mean, I don't know how many. There's been many, many generations of thinkers in this world, and we're way down on that list. So, unfortunately, you get the good with the bad. I am what I am. I'm sorry. I don't know any more than I know, and I'm trying to make sense of what I know and put it out in a way that it's trustworthy and credible, and you can refer back to it and say, oh, that guy was right about that, or oh, that guy's a moron. And that way, there is some sense of urgency to this podcast, but there's also a sense of calm that you can trust it, that it's there forever. Ultimately, I have no idea whether I'm right or not. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants like every other person ever has in this world. And you either trust me or you don't. You either find me entertaining or you don't. You either think I'm full of shit or you don't. You think I'm handsome or you don't. You think I'm smart or you don't. You think I'm wealthy or you don't. It doesn't matter. It's Coke or Pepsi. What matters is we spent an afternoon together and we did this, which is something. It's more than sleeping, right? So that's what matters. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your loyalty and your support. And I will endeavor to always challenge you because that's what I do, baby. And I like you very much. So don't think anything. If I'm disagreeing with you, that means I like you. Believe that. I don't argue with people I don't like. Ask that guy that got booted out here a minute ago. April says, conversation, I got you. I knew what you were saying. Amanda says, April, you have to rewatch last night. OMG, it was wild. Yeah, this is a mild conversation. Last night I was into it. Last night I was slinging haymakers. Jordan, were you here? I can't remember. You might have been here. I can't remember. April says, Amy, Amanda, and all the A team are so much alike, love. I love it. Yes, you guys are all alike. Very intelligent, very astute, and very good at your jobs. Thank you very much for being here. Jocelyn Adi says, yo, what? I don't know. Something. Welcome, Jocelyn. Amanda says, yes, April. And April says, I'll rewatch after this. I hope you do. And Amy says, hi, Jocelyn. And Amanda says, I don't believe it. He actually made it to the bottom of the chat, and it hasn't jumped back up yet. Wow. Or maybe I didn't. I'm not at the bottom. What happened there? That was weird. I am an hour behind. What was that all about? I made it to the bottom and then it went while I was talking. Yeah, I'm not going to make it to the bottom of this. It's already 11 o'clock. Is there anything that I haven't touched on yet that was important? You got to go through the whole thing. I do? I'm going to have to read it later. There's no way I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm already back up at the top. Something happened to my chat. I'm all the way at the top, and I haven't read this comment, so that's not right. I'm going to start from here, I guess. I guess I just lost what was before that. It starts on Aaron. Says, Amanda, did you know they can move blood in the body with strong magnets to improve circulation? The metals in our bodies are crazy. Yes, you can do that with a copper bracelet with a magnet inside. Jordan Scott Mill says, knowing is a weak form of, so much so that it dilutes the meaning of belief so much to make it impotent, in my opinion. Jake, no offense, I don't need God to come down and dance for me to worship him. Never said you did. I don't know where that came from. But I don't know what happened before that comment, so here we are. And I'm literally at the top. Amanda says, geez, Amy. And Dodo1Ops says, question marks. Right. Amanda says, nope, that's crazy, Aaron. It's Me says, one of my favorite movies is on One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson. That's a good movie. I don't know if it's my favorite movie, but it is a good movie. One of Jack Nicholson's best performances. Amy says, hi, Dodo1. You know what happened to the dodo, right? Amanda says, hi, Dodo, welcome. And April says, welcome, Dodo1. And Amanda says, fun fact, all mammals get goosebumps. That is a fun fact. I like that. Are you telling me that fish don't get goosebumps? They're missing out. Aaron says, humans are the only thing that blushes. Nope. There are humans that do not blush. Only ruddy-complected humans blush. It's white privilege. I'm just going to say it. It's a joke, man. I'm sorry. Ruddy-complected people blush. People that have reddish hair, people that have light pigment, they blush. Darker-skinned people do not blush. They blush, but they don't show it. They have that emotion, but they don't actually turn red. And yes, only humans can do that. I've never seen a dog blush. I have seen a dog embarrassed, though. Jordan says, do the acoustic sample use good vibrations, Jake? Do the acoustic samples use good vibrations? Yeah, good vibrations. Good vibrations. It's like an 80s thing. April says, did you know fat on a whale is called blubber? Yes, I did know that. Did you know that you can burn that and light lamps with it? Did you know that at one time that was the largest export of England in the world was blubber? Because all people were using gas-powered lamps, and they used blubber to light them. So for a while, whales were the biggest import or export on the planet. And then we nearly hunted them to extinction. There are pictures of just mountains of whale bones. April says, did you know? Read that one. Amy says, goosebumps, blushing, and teats. No. Lots of things have teats. And what are teats? Teats. You know what teats are? What you suckle. You suckle a teat. It's tedious. April says, haha. That man says, fun fact, a woman can orgasm from just nipple stimulation. Really? That makes it a lot easier. What is this G-spot thing we've been hearing about? It's a whole lot easier. Come on, baby, hurry up. Amy Elizabeth says, Aaron, it's teats. Titties. Tatas. Bohaves. Or however you say that. Amanda says titties equals teats. And Aaron says chimps get goosebumps, Amy. They're mammals. April says, nice, Amanda. And Aaron says, LOL, Amanda, I know that fact. And Jordan says, fun fact, only 8 nations have citizens who can go, basically all of Africa. Most of Europe and South America and Asia can go to Antarctica and flip off the researchers legally. Look it up. I said 108 nations signed a treaty. I didn't say all of them. It's yummy. It's me says yummy, Amanda. I tried that. And Amanda says, LOL, it's me. And Amanda says, I figured you might, Aaron. Aaron says, oh. April says, I just can't. I just can't. Too funny. And Amanda says, fun fact, the longest concert lasted 453 hours. Wow. What concert was that? Was that the Isle of Wight or Woodstock? Aaron says, why? LOL. April says, Woodstock, Amanda? Aaron says, they woke up savage, Jake. Right on. Uh-oh. It's short-lived, though. I'm tired. So savage Jake's only going to last a little while. Amanda says, M&M's were the first candy eaten in space. I thought it was, no, that's not candy. Never mind. Jake, you're speaking to a predeterminist Christian. If you ask me where hydrogen came from, I'll look you in the eye and say the Lord our God made hydrogen, Jake. Ask your questions. I have insomnia anyway. Well, that's fine. I was asking from the appeal of science. I know where hydrogen came from. That was a rhetorical question. So you have to understand me. You're talking to an authority on the Bible, a guy that teaches it for a living. I know my stuff. I've been through the book a few times. I've done the research. So I know where hydrogen comes from and all other things. And I know the answers to most of the questions I'm asking. In fact, I don't ask very many questions I don't already know the answer to. That being said, I was trying to get you to go down the rabbit hole that you were proposing when we were talking about stars and star stuff and the fact that the elements are formed in stars, which is a talking point. It's not truth. It's a hypothesis. They don't know that. I was trying to get you to see that by asking you questions that I already know the answer to, hoping you would find the answer and go, oh, maybe I don't know what I think I know. That was the idea. So, yeah, I know where hydrogen came from. It's always been here, just like everything else. I don't know what predeterminist means, but if you mean that all things came from the beginning, then yeah, I'm that guy too. Amanda says, no, April, it was a concert in Canada, I believe. Wow, Canada. Go Canada. Aaron says, if a star made gold, trust me, the government would harvest them in groves. Yeah, you ever wonder why all the money that we send over to Ukraine and all the other places that we waste money at, how there's nobody trying to mine the asteroids? Because the asteroids are full of gold and other things. You ever wonder why nobody's doing that? Or maybe they are, and you just haven't heard about it. Maybe that's where all that black site money goes. Maybe all those UFOs that we keep seeing are people dropping off loads. You ever thought about that? April says, LOL, I thought it was Reese's. Phone home. E.T. Phone home. That was a movie. M&M's were brought up in the space shuttle. Amanda says, right, Aaron? And April says, cool. Canadians love music. A lot of great singers from there. Right on. And Captain Kirk, too. Aaron says, they have pretty people, too. Yes. Amy Elizabeth says, April, Bryan Adams, Tom McDonald. Is that a thing? Cool. I got to see that. I haven't seen that one. I like Tom McDonald. Not crazy about Bryan Adams, but I like, yeah, I'd die for you. Yeah, I'd lie for you. Walk the world for you. Yeah, I'd die for you. You know it's true. Everything I do, oh, I do it for you. Terrible, I know. April says, yes. I used to sing that, by the way. Amy says, Celine Dion, I think, too. Really? Yeah, she looks Canadian. Aaron says, they produce more Victoria's Secret models and bunnies than any place in the world. Now, that's a fun fact. Fun fact, did you know the human head weighs 8 pounds? I saw it in a movie once, so I'm pretty sure it's real. April says stars are big balls of gas. You think. They might be electric plasma. You don't know. The one thing I know for sure is it's not on fire. Because, fire requires oxygen to burn. There's no evidence that fire burns absent oxygen anywhere. Aaron says, so they're big farts? Could be. Or they're electric. We live in an electric universe and everything is based on density and buoyancy and magnetism and electromagnetism. Could be that too. I've been down that rabbit hole also. I don't favor that one, but there's some validity to what they're saying. Amy says Victoria's Secret is not really a secret. Sex sells. That's not a secret. Right on. And Amanda says, LOL, Aaron, I wonder if they stink. Stars? The moon stinks. The moon smells like rotten eggs, according to the astronauts that have been there. Which is interesting that they would develop a smell for the moon. Seems like that's the first thing they've said that I believe. Why? Because that's not a detail you would think they lie about. That's why. The fact that there are no stars visible from the moon's surface, that was easily explainable. But the fact that it smelled like rotten eggs every time they got out of their spacesuits in the whatever, I believe that. Aaron says the secret was, it's dudes, LOL. It's a dude. Victoria's a dude. Ha ha. Yes. Amy says, Aaron, ha ha. Stanky star farts. Right on, Aaron. And Amanda says, LOL, Dutch oven for real, damn stars. Amy says, he's got big balls, she's got big balls, but we've got the biggest balls of them all. Oi. Amanda says, I wonder if when a star farts, does it take a whiff? Ew. Well, if it has a nose, maybe. If it don't, maybe not. All right. It is 11:14, and I'm nowhere near the bottom of this chat. So once again, I'm going to have to bow out gracefully. You win. Jordan says, Jake is trying to little bro me right now when I'm 6'5", and I'm fascist who believes democracy is a false god. Jake, to quote Bain, you merely embrace questions. I was born in them. Jordan Scott Mills, I would take you on any day of the week gladly and be friends afterwards because I can take a beating and I can give one, buddy. So you bang yourself to death over there because I am Darth Vader and I live in the dark side. Come on. Come at me, bro. And I'm not 6'5", which means I have a little man complex, and I will climb up your ass and cloud up and rain all over you. 6'5". You might be 6'5", but you see that? That's hellfire and brimstone. You see that? I'm scared of that one my damn self. Aaron says, fart, pass. Amanda says, rolling on the floor, Aaron. Smoking ass. Amy says, Aaron, LOL. Jordan is 6.5 inches tall? That's a shame. Somebody don't know what a foot looks like. The one is a foot. The two is an inch. He said it right. He was 6'5". I read that wrong. It's me says, buy a ticket to Elon's ship. Look for yourself. Right on. I would love to go to outer space. Apparently, William Shatner did, and it made him cry. He said while everybody was looking at the Earth, he was looking out the other window at the blackness of space, and it freaked him out a little bit. So empty out there. There's nothing but death out there. Yeah. A low Earth orbit. That's where we've been. That I can guarantee this happened. That I can prove. Can't prove the rest of it. Aaron says, I'm bad today, Amanda. we all have to let it out somewhere. That's the beautiful thing about this channel is we can vent and still be buddies at the end. I love it. And Amanda says, we go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. That's the lie. You think you got it bad. She lives with me. It doesn't turn off. You get to end this podcast. She doesn't. She lives it day and night. It's like the Faustian deal. She lives in the Twilight Zone with Jake all the time, 24/7. It's horrifying. Horrifying, I tell you. Jordan says, like I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying it like it is a lie. Okay, next. Way bigger things to deal with, in my opinion. Black holes and Mars don't put cereal in the bowl. I know you're not calling me a liar in that sentence. I'm just saying it like it is a lie. Oh, I'm just saying like if it's a lie. Oh, okay, I read it wrong. My bad. Yeah, I'm with you. But we are here, and this is a conversation that we're having, so might as well put your best foot forward. And, you know, I don't care if you're mean. I can be mean. Amanda says, LOL, we looks like we are all, I can read. LOL, looks like we all are, Aaron. It's fun to be bad sometimes. Right on. Aaron says, facts. And Amanda says, it breaks up the monotony. Right on. Aaron says, I just thought about something. If Jesus is the Son of God and he had siblings, are with our sin like him, or are they like us? Jesus had siblings, and they are people just like us. His siblings were the product of Mary and Joseph. Jesus was the product of Mary and God. Joseph had nothing to do with that. So they're half siblings, and they are people in sin just like us. He had at least 2 brothers and a few sisters. I think he had more than 2 brothers, but I can't remember all the names. But James and Judas were his brothers. Not Judas Iscariot, the one that betrayed him. That wasn't his brother. He had a brother named Judas, though. Aaron says, I'm only asking because I don't know enough. Well, that's the whole reason to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. That's one thing I want to get out of the way right now. I believe firmly there's no such thing as a dumb question. There are dumb answers, but there are no dumb questions. A question means you're seeking the truth, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Amanda says, Jesus was the only one who was perfect, no sins. Everyone else was like us. Right on. April says, fact, Amanda. Atlantis. And Aaron says, thank you. April says, yes. You're welcome, Aaron, says Amanda. And Aaron says, Rishot. Right. That's the place I was trying to think of. Amanda says, yes, Aaron, Rishot structure. And April says, it's already been checked out. People have died there. Right. Because it's a bad place to go. That's why there's not teams of scientists over there looking at it right now. There have been people that went over there, and they have gleaned some information, but it's not enough. I mean, we can't confirm that that's Atlantis, but it does fit all of the boxes, ticks all the boxes. So it's pretty interesting that they found that place. And here's the thing that's funny about that. We've been toiling about Atlantis since the 50s and probably before that, but they've known about it ever since the 50s or before that. Ever since they've been putting things up into space, they've known about that structure, and it's only coming out now in 2025 that that's a place. We've never seen that place before. Isn't that interesting? That's a place on Earth you didn't know existed until 2025. Amanda says, no brain, no speaking. Right on. Patty says, I'm heading out. Me too. I'm happy to have had y'all's company tonight. See y'all tomorrow, and thank you again. Patty, I love you, sweetheart. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Jordan, God bless you too. Aaron, God bless you. April, God bless you. Kevin, wherever you're at, God bless you. And everybody else in chat, God bless you. I love you, true. It is 11:21, and I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed halfway through the chat once again. Free will is not an illusion. It is a fact. I know you think it isn't, but trust me on this. come to Bible study tomorrow night, and I'll prove it to you. It's a way to free will is an illusion is a way to sum up a 30-minute long theological discussion like it's more or less how it is. It's like the Trinity. It takes a second, and you got to be big-brained. Right. I agree with that. It's not an illusion, though. It is a real thing. It might be an illusion, but it's not an illusion. You know the difference between those things. Okay. So, and that would take a long time to discuss. Because that's like, the questions like that are like onions. You got to peel back the layers and get down to the part that makes you cry, and ultimately you get to the bottom and realize it's not a fruit. It's one of those things. So, I know you've never thought about an onion that way before, but now you have. Now you live with it. You're welcome. Have a great night, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait till tomorrow night. I'm going to cut some grass, and then we're going to do Bible study. Have a great night. I love you, true. Hit that Cash App, $Jake Johnson Band. Bye-bye.